This is a short analysis and breakdown of one of my all-time favorite movies, There Will Be Blood. Now, I kind of wrote into the script an explanation like way later because I realized something, but I'll just say it now. This was not meant to be this crazy. I was trying to figure out how to do some content that I could kind of make more consistent, less editing, a little less effort, but still quality and something I enjoy. Then this turned into a 36-page script, and I kind of lost the plot a little bit. So, where I failed to create the where I failed to find an idea that worked, I succeeded in, I think, crafting a script and making a video I wanted to make. So it's kind of a win-win. No, it's kind of a win-loss, but that's okay because you still gain something. It's roughly based off the book by Upton Sinclair called Oil! Exclamation mark. Quite apt, quite apt in title for what this movie's about. Uh, it's, I would say that the book, a lot of the events are very similar, a lot of the characters are very similar, but the book is more focused on giving us almost a historical fiction. It's more focused on things that happened at the time. People are stand-ins for ideas more than they are their own characters. I would say the Upton Sinclair book has its benefits. Uh, if you like historical accounts and periodization, then you're gonna really like that book. Me personally, no, not for me. That's okay though. It's not for everybody. A highlight for this movie, for a connection, would be page 31, where we see the speech that Daniel Day-Lewis, or I mean Daniel Plainview in the movie, will be saying as his first piece of dialogue. And it really introduces us to his character, how he's kind of a snake oil salesman. Our sweet baby, Daniel Day-Lewis, if you can't see him right here playing his character, Daniel Plainview. Easy enough comparison, I suppose. But it does raise one problem for the video, which is the analysis piece. How do you analyze an actor that has the same name as his character? So I will be henceforth referring to Mr. Daniel Day-Lewis, the real person, as Mr. Lewis, and Daniel Plainview will take Mr. Plainview, Daniel, all of it, okay? Just for the sake of simplicity. Paul Dano plays Eli, the pastor, the antithesis to our character, but really more of a dark mirror. We'll come to discuss that a little bit more. And he does fantastic. I don't think There Will Be Blood would have been as influential or as fantastic without Paul Dano's work as Eli, because Eli really is a real driving source of conflict for Daniel in the movie. So good. Ugh. We have some other notable highlights. Dylan Frazier, he plays young HW. He does a fantastic job. I think that he really brings some life to a fairly silent character. His dialogue, you can tell that HW is kind of just like an awkward little kid. But he's wise to the ways of how his father sells people on false promises, and it kind of eats him alive. Because kids a lot of times are more moral than their parents, and it's hard to, what's the word? It's like cognitive dissonance. I know that's kind of a buzzword, but it's cognitive dissonance where a child understands what their parent is doing is wrong, but the parent, which is their authority figure, is telling them it's okay. So what are you supposed to believe? The authority figure that you trust because it's protected you in your entire life, or you think it's protected you, or do you trust yourself, which you don't have enough experience to really trust yourself at that time? Sorry, kind of a tangent. Moving on. Another, Kevin J. O'Connor, he plays Henry, Daniel's brother in the movie. He does a very good job of kind of lulling us into liking him in a kind of pathetic way. He's kind of, oh God, I gotta stop saying that. He's, Kevin J. O'Connor as Henry is in part a pathetic character, very pitiful. So we happen to feel for him. He has a very smooth way of gaining empathy and sympathy from the way that he acts in the movie, and I think Kevin J. O'Connor did a fantastic job. I need to see some more movies by Kevin J. O'Connor. I feel like I've seen him in a few things. So the way this is going to happen after that small intro is that I am going to break down the entire movie, and throughout I will add little tidbits of my personal analysis. Now, keep in mind this is my own way of looking at the movie, though from what I've seen online, it's pretty corroborated by other people. I mean, it's pretty hard to disagree that the movie at least deals with themes of capitalism and religion. I I really can't see somebody saying it doesn't. I will be mostly referring to the capitalistic metaphors, analogies, and aspects as envy and greed because it's an easier pull. I'm not very knowledgeable on the ins and outs of capitalism. I have a very surface level knowledge just from living in a capitalist nation, right? So I'm not going to be going into the deep systematic metaphors, mostly just greed and envy, which kind of has to do with capitalism as a system. The religion, I will be going a lot more into religion. I do have a somewhat religious background, and my knowledge base is just bigger being in such a religious state. So, yeah. Without further ado, let's ado. Our movie opens up with this beautiful desert vista, but not all is right. We have this horrible but like fantastic string, like buzzing sound, what you'll see throughout the movie. It's like it's opening and it's reminding me a lot of The Shining, but oh god, what's the other? There's another movie. It's like. Anyways, The Shining is a pretty good comparison. It's setting it up like a horror movie, which this is a character drama. This whole movie is a character drama. So to open with this horror theme just really gets me invested. I remember when I first started watching this, I'm like, what the fuck is with this ominous ass soundtrack? Isn't this a movie about a guy drilling for oil, being greedy? And I wasn't necessarily wrong, but you'll see throughout this entire film how they really do a fantastic job of blending genres, specifically horror and drama. And I think more movies could take from horror elements and infuse them, which I think we've seen a little bit of that. We've definitely seen a little bit of that over the years. I wish we'd see more. Anyway, the soundtrack is ominous, that's the point. And your question should be, why is it so ominous? Like, what is happening? Why is there horror music in this drama? These are all questions you should be asking. I mean, to be fair, I guess the title is kind of a giveaway of bad things that may happen. May happen. It's foreboding, it's setting us up for the events to come. Okay. We are now introduced to our character, Daniel Plainview. He's down in a thin mine shaft attempting to get some silver. This is our origin story of sorts, kind of seeing where he began trying to strike it rich before the obvious oil shift in his career path. We get a small clip of him, and this may be one of my favorite shots in the movie, to be honest, which it's too easy. I'm not 100% sure what other people think of it, but he's crouched by a fire, and he's got this cloth shawl. I think I'll put it on screen here, and he's drinking the coffee, and you can just tell how cold it is, and the desert is right behind him. And we get a small text that basically tells us 1898, not small, it's in the middle of the screen, 1898. And I just love this introduction of Daniel as kind of single-minded. Yeah. He's sitting there, he's drinking coffee, but he's just staring into nothing by himself. And I like to think he's staring at the silver mine, just waiting to get back down there when he regains his strength. That's headcanon. let's not delve into headcanon.
The rest will be speculators.
The next scene we get is him sticking a chunk of dynamite into the rock, hoping to blow it to smithereens, maybe find some silver down there, because he's not having any luck so far. He climbs up the ladder quickly, this rickety wooden piece of shit, and he attempts to pull his tools up with a pulley system he made. Doesn't go well, blows up, all of his tools are shit. Oh, that sucks. He's like, well, maybe there's some silver down there, so he kind of eagerly goes down the ladder, and wouldn't you know, the wooden ladder snaps, falls down, and he obliterated his leg. His leg is fucking snapped, which for the rest of the movie, we'll be seeing him limp around. Seems this injury is very permanent. He has the wind completely knocked out of him. He can't really breathe very well. And he sees his leg, but then the first thing he does after he sees his broken leg and he's caught his breath, immediately turns to look if the silver is there. And it is. He finds his silver. And this is a great way of showing us the kind of man that Daniel Plainview is. Even when he's down, even when he's falling off a ladder 40 feet into a mine shaft, no one else around, nowhere close by to save him, he looks for the silver before he saves himself. Self-destructive, he's a very self-destructive character. Single-minded, once again. I think that's a very good word. I think I'll be using that. He quickly covets the ore and crawls his way to the only source of civilization around, which is, man, I wonder how far that was. But anyways, he gets there, and there's a great scene of him sitting on the floor of the silver and gold like shop where they check your silver if it's real. And as they're confirming the legitimacy, Daniel's just sitting on the floor with a double-barrel shotgun. Like, I dare you to try to screw me out of this deal, even with a broken leg. We do a slow, meandering cut to 1902, and I want to add that a lot of this film, I think, meanders. It's like a lumbering beast that just doesn't stop. All the camera movements are very slow and deliberate. We see people kind of fade in. Even during the action scene, the camera's like lazily following our characters up to whatever the problem is. It really gives the whole movie a sense of weight. There's no quick zooms like a Tarantino film. It is very slow. It's very, we're getting there. We're getting there at our own pace. Anyways, we cut to 1902, 4 years later. It seems Daniel's risen up the chain a little bit. Maybe that silver mine ended up producing quite a bit. He has some workers under him. He has shifted his focus to oil now. He's on a very, very small oil rig with, I think it's like 5 or 6 employees, which pretty good, but not good enough to where he doesn't have to be down there helping them. He's down in the oil shaft, and they're slopping up mud, trying to make enough room so that they can spike it again and get some oil out of there. We are introduced to an infantile form of a very, very important character to our story, H.W. The father of H.W. is working under Daniel doing the oil work. It seems he brought his infant son because maybe his wife, I don't know, his wife didn't have, his wife might be there. Because later we see they set up tents and bring their families down, but they have like a work camp and then they have a home. So maybe, anyways, he brought his infant to the oil rigging, which makes me think that they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere with just some supplies. Anyways, the son doesn't have a mother, it seems. We see maybe the most obvious foreshadowing for a death of a character in all of cinema, where they're dragging up this huge metal spike above the oil shaft and they're dropping it, and it spikes into the ground and oil seeps up like blood. They're basically breaking it open so that they can strike oil, which they did. But just the way that Daniel looks at one of his coworkers, like smiling, all mischievous, and his employee just kind of like gives this disgusted look and looks down at the shaft, really gives us a sense of how workers working in these conditions would actually feel. Just like no safety precautions. Like, fuck, dude. Daniel goes down there with one of his employees, happens to be the father of HW, the infant. And I don't know if you could have guessed, but the spike falls and hits him on the head in a pretty brutal fashion, and the dad dies on impact, falling into the oil. And Daniel kind of covers up and watches his coworker's lifeless body just sitting in the pool of oil. And I think in this moment, I'll go on to say this later because I think this is kind of central to my personal opinion on Daniel as a character. But I remember during the 2000s, it was very popular to have a character with a major arc. Pretty simple, right? It's still fairly popular. But now I think Dan Harmon and a lot of other creators have introduced an old idea, which is the character's always been that way. They don't seek change, they don't want to change, they don't need to change. They have always been that way. And everything else is attempting to change them when they're not going to change. For example, don't know if you like anime, but I'm going to use it as an example. Eren. Eren is a classic example of this very, very recent popularization of a character who doesn't change. Eren has always wanted freedom. Eren has always sought to be free of others' control. That is who he was, that is who he is, that is who he will always be in the story of Attack on Titan. Circular. Everything else just challenges it, and he might change certain aspects of his beliefs, but he will never be chained. He will never accept that. Easy enough. Daniel always wants more. He's competitive. He wants to destroy others. He wants power over other people. I think in this moment when he saw that person die, he was introduced to the fact that he cannot continue forward without accepting others may die because of him. He just accepts it. He's horrified for maybe 15 seconds, and then we get a cut to him taking care of the man's son. Was some sort of responsibility or maybe guilt. But he accepts right then. People will die, and we'll see another time when this exact same thing happens later in the movie. Just kind of shows you that Daniel is not he's not here to make others' lives better. He's here to beat everyone else. You're on his team or you're against him. I'm going too deep. Well, let's move on. Daniel starts to take care of the baby, gives him some whiskey and milk. Very common for the time. Don't cancel Daniel. Oh my God, that's really hard to say. Don't cancel Daniel yet. Don't cancel Daniel yet. God damn. That was very common for the time. Maybe cancel Daniel for the later stuff. Yeah, he does some, he probably says some things that don't sound too good either. Get him liquored up and bring him to the Peachtree Dance. What are you planning at the Peachtree Dance, Mr. Plainview? Daniel will go on to treat this infant as an adopted son of sorts named HW. I've already mentioned that. They get on a train, and we slowly fade into another time skip. 1911. We reach another time skip for 1911. Daniel is clearly a lot wealthier than when we last saw him. HW has grown up into a boy. I mean, obviously from the little time skip there. This is one of the best speeches in the entire movie, but I mean, a lot of it, you should really be giving your flowers to Upton Sinclair, the writer of Oil. It's based off of page 31. This is almost word for word a speech he wrote in the book. But the way that Mr. Lewis delivers it, impeccable. Daniel, his pitch makes him sound like the sleaziest businessman you've ever known in your entire life. I mean, the way that he crafts his sentences to make him seem like he's this perfect figure and pillar of the community who's just trying to run a business. It's crazy. And even the way he points to his adopted son, there is love there. There is love between Daniel and his adopted son, HW. But his son is still a tool that can be a tool that helps him sell the idea that he is a family man, that they are a family business. Everything to Daniel is a tool. Your love is a tool. Your hate is a tool. Your friendship is a tool. Your business is a tool. Your family is a tool. Your land that you've owned for generations is a tool. Your religion's a tool. It's all a tool that can be used by him. And I think this is a great example. The way he points back at his son, like, oh, this is my son, H.W. Lewis. It's just like, I don't know, just something about it. It's so rehearsed. And you'll see that this is a common, this entire speech has been rehearsed by him like so many times that he can just rattle it off when he needs to sell it to a town. He's attempting to tell a town that they have a great opportunity by letting him suck the very essence of oil out of their town and squeeze them for every penny they're worth while giving them almost nothing back. He's selling that he is a fair person, where every other oil man is trying to get between the town and the oil. He's not stingy like those other oil men. I'm different. As I mentioned earlier, Daniel is looking a lot wealthier here. He kind of has a suit. It seems that the towns are pining after his abilities because he's a fairly talented oil man. He has multiple wells that are producing passive income. I mean, there are reasons to believe he might be lying, but I think at the very least we could say at least one well is producing, if not a few, which I think it's probably all three of them. So this really strikes me as greedy, and I know that a businessman's goal is to obtain as much wealth as possible, right? But if we just think about the place that Daniel was in, the general poverty he was living in, the permanent injury that now makes him limp around, how he was working in a small silver shaft mine by himself, making almost nothing, and then working with workers where death was a daily issue for him. He now has multiple wells with passive income, an adopted son, cars. I, I mean, just spare cash flow. So it really drives a point that he could live a middle class life the rest of his life and be fairly like secure. But instead, he chooses a chase like this. He chooses to chase this oil. He wants to be the top dog. He's competitive. He wants to beat everyone else. And I guess that could also probably be attached to the whole idea of capitalism, right? Like, it's the whole thing. Oh man, he's literally capitalism. His whole thing. I have a competition in me. That's that's like capitalism. The whole idea is competition breeds the market. I don't know if I'm the biggest idiot or I'm making a smart connection. I have a competition in me. I want no one else to succeed, which is kind of like monopolies, which is one of the biggest problems with capitalism. Fuck. How did I not see that? I feel like an idiot. Okay. Wow. The metaphor runs deeper than I first expected. Anyway, sorry, back to the point. For Daniel, it's not about escaping poverty. A lot of people try to create a business to escape poverty, or at least it always starts out that way. But once they gain a little bit more than the average layman, they want more. They want to make sure they are the top, that no one else can succeed. It's about being the best. It's about beating others, which means Daniel will never truly be happy because you can't beat everyone. And you can't beat yourself. But you can try, which will ruin your life. So Daniel's never going to be happy. By the end of Daniel's speech, the town is erupting in frustration, which these three caricatures I drew, I hope give you a decent visage of the kind of vitriol they held towards him. Some are arguing, yes, we need the oil, we need flow into our town, it's poor. Others are saying he's just a snake oil salesman. He's not even real oil. It's snake oil. We get a cut to this scene. I always forget the scenes in the movie because it's kind of a short edition. But basically, we get to see Daniel's one-on-one with just a random family trying to sell them on letting him drill, which kind of sets up what to expect out of an interaction like this. Kind of like when a lot of shows do an establishing scene, or a movie does an establishing scene where like we'll get a day in the normal part of a life of a person, and then the second day is when shit hits the fan, so we can see how odd it is in comparison. This is kind of that, but anyways, an important detail with this entire talk with the family is that Daniel's basically saying, I'll give you 1/6 of the cut on your land for buying the oil. So basically, whatever it produces, I'll give you 1/6, which is pretty sad. The wife asks Daniel where his wife is at, and he says that she died during childbirth. So he's keeping up the lie to HW and everyone else that HW is indeed his real son. This is not for HW's benefit, I don't think, at least. I think it's just so Daniel can gain sympathy from people, because I'm sure that people this time, religious people, probably don't really care about adopted kids, but they could probably feel a lot better for a man who had his wife die during childbirth. You know what I mean? Do you have to do that? What? We get introduced to an important side character that I guess technically we won't see again, but will be referenced to throughout the entire movie. Paul's Sunday comes to Daniel, asking him what he would be willing to pay for the location of a place where land can be bought cheaply and oil seeps out of the ground. Now, Daniel attempts to use his knowledge of being an oilman to kind of angle Paul out of just giving him the information on the location without having to pay him by being like, oh, if oil seeps out of the ground, it doesn't mean there's anything under it, and all this kind of other stuff. But Paul Sunday is not stupid. He's actually pretty smart. He knows what Daniel wants, and he also knows that giving any information about where land is being bought around the territory, what town he's from, will just instantly give away probably where this oil's at. So he makes sure to make it very, very clear to Daniel that unless he is promised cash like he wants, he will not be giving up the location. Eventually, Daniel agrees and threatens Paul, telling him that if he goes there, if I go there and there's nothing, I'm going to find you and I'm going to take more than my money back. Is that okay with you, Paul? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is. And, you know, here we kind of see Paul is a very straight-laced, he's religious, kind of callbacks to the family, but it really seems that he's the smart one, which we'll see referenced later. He looks Daniel in the eyes. He doesn't shy away. He knows what Daniel is. Daniel knows what he is, and they look through each other. Really good. So we have Daniel drive up to Little Boston, the town that Paul mentioned, up to the Sunday Ranch, Paul's family ranch, with his son, H.W., under the pretense that they are there to quail hunt. I really like this picture, this scene right here. I think I'll put it up, but just the two of them walking up with these huge bags, and it looks like HW's about to fall over because it's so heavy. Just really gives us a little cutesy, wholesome father-son dynamic that will be lost in the later arcs of this movie. But just this kind of silly shots here. But under this pretense, obviously, they're looking for that sweet, sweet black gold oil on the land. And the Sundays being God-fearing Christians, or they're from the Church of the Third Revelation, but I think it's, it might be Baptist. No, like, it has Calvinist roots because they believe in predestination. I don't know. I don't know enough about religion for that one. Sorry, but they're somewhere around there. Anyways, being God-fearing men and women and children, they obviously let them quail hunt and they offer them milk, and goat's milk would be great. Daniel probes for more information on the ranch, and he's getting everything he wants. It sounds like Paul really told them the truth. Then, as they're setting up a little camp, just a little bit outside of the ranch, Paul's brother Eli comes over, and we get this look. The absolute confusion on Daniel's face as he stares at this man, and he goes, "I'm Eli, his twin brother." Yeah, Eli and Paul are twins, so it's just Paul Dano twice. We get Paul Dano twice. Let's fucking go. Bingo card. Father and son bonding. They go on their little quail hunt, and they're having a good time. They're kind of running around, and HW trips over a little lump and gets a bunch of oil on his foot and realizes, oh, this is where the oil is seeping out of the ground. His father comes over. They find it, and he kind of gives his son a little, gives him some nuggies. What do they call that? Is that a nuggie? When you do the hair thing? I think so. Which is so sweet. I'm so sad of where this relationship goes. I think an important note to make, though, about this part where he's like congratulating his son. It feels like, yeah, his love is a little conditional here. Like, his son discovered the oil, so now he gives his son affection. So I'm not saying it's always conditional, because you'll see parts of the movie where it's not, but you can definitely tell that there's an underlying foundation and theme of that. Daniel begins to give the audience and his son a little bit of mentoring on the oil business, explaining that oil seeping out of the ground is very good, and his plan is that he's going to pump it out of the ground after buying it cheaply from the family, run a pipeline all the way to the ocean, basically making a deal with Union Oil, which is kind of their tracts of land are in the way of the ocean, so he'd make a deal with them to run a pipeline through. Daniel is so caught up in the monetary gain and wealth and explaining to his son how awesome this is for them that he completely just can't even comprehend his son's human cost questions. HW's, how much are we going to pay them? And Daniel's like, who? Probably thinking he's like Union, because like, oh yeah, that is a big business issue. And his son's like, no, the family, that we're gonna strip their land and just fucking destroy and drill oil out of it. How much are we gonna pay that nice farmer family that showed us all this hospitality? Uh, HW is clearly more focused on the human cost. Even with his dad's influence, he's a very empathetic kid, and you'll see that he keeps that. But Daniel just says, we won't give them oil prices. We'll give them quail prices, which is, wow, man. Eesh, evil. Because the thing is, this is ridiculously greedy because, and spiteful, because I guess his competitive nature or whatever, because he could give them fair prices for this, right? And he would still make a sizable amount of money, like a lot of money from this. But it's not about that. It's about gaining as much while losing as little as possible. It's not about everybody being raised up by, oh, great find, we're all going to gain. It's about how much can I gain while you gain nothing. When I first watched There Will Be Blood, this scene where he talks about he's going to give him quail prices, right? I was naive. I was naive thinking, oh, he's going to give them a paltry sum of royalties for the well. So give them a certain percentage of it, but it will be so low that it's a quail prices, right? No, he's literally just going to buy their land outright, saying he wants to hunt quail on there, which it means no royalties, and once it's bought, it's done. Wow, that's malicious. I don't even know how to say it. He sells the father, Abel, a story where he says, oh, my son is sick. He needs fresh air. And we love quail hunting up there. We really love it. So we just want to pay for the quail hunting up here. We love it. And very quickly we realize Abel doesn't run this family. Eli does. Eli quickly realizes that Daniel is a grifter and cuts off his father, Abel, upping the price for the ranch as much as he can. Daniel, realizing that Eli kind of runs this shit, looks over and asks him, what does he think is a fair deal? And Eli says, $10,000 for my church. And Daniel says, oh, that's great, Eli, basically patronizing him. And we get our first real confrontation with religion here, where Daniel is faced with a business proposition that is involving religion, right? It's fairly obvious that Mr. Plainview here is not religious, and every other character in our story is in some form. Now, this creates a lot of issues. Now, something interesting is that Daniel will lie, cheat, hoard, completely completely just lie, blatant lies to people, right? He'll even say, like, oh, I'm this religion, if it gets him something, or say, I love all religions, which he says earlier. But one thing he really struggles with is engrossing himself in a religion for its benefits, right? Like, he just feels so uncomfortable with the subject, and it's very clear throughout the story that he is uncomfortable with it. He doesn't seem to know how to approach it. Probably because being an atheist in this time was so bad that he knows that it would be a grave disadvantage to say something like that. Abel the father says a line so pathetic it stays with me wherever I go, which is when Daniel asks, does that sound like a good deal to you, Abel? He goes, yes, whatever Eli says. Dude.
Whatever my boy says, whatever my son Eli says.
Fuck, dude, that's brutal. We now launch into arguably one of the fastest points in the movie, where the camera isn't quite as lumbering. I mean, it still is, but anyways, this like plucky kind of Jaws-like theme, like do 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 do, jumps in. I think it's a bass or a cello, but anyways, it gives us the idea that things are rapidly picking up. Daniel meets with the real estate agent of the town, basically the person who helps figure out where you're buying land. He goes into the building and he starts talking to him, and he's asking him, what can be bought here? And he's kind of pointing out, this place could be bought, this place could be bought, this is owned by them, Union, and this one. He's like, what about this? And he's like, that's the Bandy Tract. And then he asks if it can be bought, and then he's like, sure. And then Daniel goes, can everything around here be bought? Or be got? Might be what he said. And the guy goes, sure. And the music cuts out. Editor, soundtrack, and the cinematography, actors here, all working as one for this one precise moment. And then, boom, we're back in the music. Cut into Daniel driving. Daniel begins to call his associates to let them know that it did end up being something they need to get down there as quickly as possible. Another prospective oil man arrives that Daniel happens to know, named Gene, and basically Daniel gives him in no small terms, basically saying like, hey, I just bought up basically everything, and you're not going to be able to get anything out of here, so you should look, I think he says east? Look east. Because he says he'd rather do business with someone he knows, basically, than have Union Oil or Standard Oil or whoever buy it up. Gene and Daniel do some verbal sparring back and forth, just kind of fucking with each other, jabbing. And Gene tells HW to lawyer up if he wants half of his dad's stuff someday. Kind of foreshadowing here, so just hold on to that idea for the end of the movie. Some of Daniel's men begin to measure out the land, and we get this really sad scene where HW is talking to one of the daughters of the Sunday ranch that they will be buying out, Mary Sunday. I know the religious analogies and metaphors here are kind of stabbing us. It's a little annoying sometimes, but I understand the point. But it's Mary Sunday, Eli Sunday, Abel Sunday, Paul Sunday. Are you fucking with me right now? That's crazy, right? I'm not crazy for that. I don't care. Mary kind of asks somewhat naively how much they can make off of something like that. And HW is kind of dismissive and says it depends on a bunch of things, kind of mirroring his father in a few ways, but really he just feels really guilty. He looks so guilty here. He looks like a kid that just took a cookie out of the cookie jar. And later, HW will confide in his father, Daniel, that Mary is actually beaten by her father, Abel. Now, Daniel doesn't forget this, but keep in mind that Daniel only does something here when it benefits him, when he can get one up on somebody and can use it to win. And I mean, it's just a nice positive that his son would approve and like that for his friend, Mary. We get another mention of the Bandy Tract and how it still hasn't been sold to Daniel yet. And Daniel's kind of confused. Why doesn't he own this yet? And the real estate agent basically says, oh, remember, it's the Bandy Tract. They're one of the holdouts. And Daniel says, oh, we'll wait them out. Eventually, they're going to come sell. Spoiler alert, they don't. The piano picks up, and it is so sad. Daniel's workers arrive, and they come with dark clouds, and the train stops, and the piano is kind of setting this tone like we're in the shit now. Everything has been set up for tragedy. There are no winners in a lot of ways. Just fucking somber. Sunday Ranch has been bought, and Daniel's doing his classic little spiel to the town, promising them schools, bread, which the town lacks because they're basically the ground is really bad for growing things, so all of them just own like goat farms. But he promises them bread and schooling, and of course Eli chips in asking if there will be a road to the church, and Daniel promises that'll be the first road, and then immediately dismisses Eli, which just cracks me up. We then do some soft transitions to HW and Daniel finding a little shack nearby that they kind of end up setting up as a makeshift home. We get images and, oh my god, we get cuts of them building wells and schools and upgrading the churches and roads. And above all of it, though, is that oil rigging. It's always looming. The god of oil is always looming over any benefit you get. And the god of oil taketh away. Now, from this point on, the story takes a little bit of turn. The focus becomes on the confrontation between Daniel and Eli and the kinds of powers they hold. Daniel obviously holds the monetary power over the town, right? He owns the main source of income that will now be turning this place called Little Boston from a backwoods into somewhere where you can get bread and be a little bit happier, right? Get schooling. Eli, on the other hand, holds community sway. He is the church of the third revelation in this town, and everybody there is very, very zealous. Now, Eli kind of flaunts his power in Daniel's face by going up to the workers as they're leaving the rig for the day and giving them religious ribbons with his churchgoers, and some of them do take. Daniel notices this, and it immediately frustrates him because the pin is almost a symbol of allegiance to Eli in a kind of strange way. Or at the very least, that's how Daniel sees it. He has a competition in him. Eli walks into Daniel's little FOB, forward operating base. Daniel kind of uses it to look over his workers and watch the oil well. Eli walks in, and the pure vitriol Mr. Lewis depicts his character as having for Eli, just golden. Just golden. The way he stares at Eli like he is the most pathetic worm that has ever graced his presence. Basically, anyways, Eli asks if he may talk to Daniel, and Daniel goes, sure. Lets him in, tells him to have a seat. Paul Dano, wow, what a great delivery of him basically asserting his next request by saying, tomorrow I will bless the well. And Daniel kind of stares at him and is just kind of taking it in. Eli's like, yep, you will say this, you will introduce me as this, and say that proud shepherd of these lands now blesses this well, and then he will bless the well. That's kind of where he's going with it. But uncharacteristic, like, for our Mr. Daniel Plainview, our oil man, is he completely permits it. He goes, oh, is that how you want to do it? Oh, what time works for you? Oh, sounds great. Sounds great. Now this should be setting off alarm bells for all of us. Set off the alarm bells. Daniel quickly ascertained that Eli was making a power move by doing this. And he completely acquiesced because he instantly came up with a better scheme. So let's cut to the day of the unveiling of the oil well. Daniel is up there with his son HW and Mary Sunday. And he's giving the speech and talking about, oh yes, so we land, Mary, and he's talking there. He's holding Mary, and Eli's kind of looking up, very hopeful, right? Just like filled with like, now I'm going to bless this well, and everybody will see me bless the well, which means I will hold more power, and my ego will also be stroked at the same time. And Daniel goes, oh yes, Mary, come up here, the daughter of the Sundays, the sister of Eli, and goes, a proud daughter of these fields will bless this well. All right, God bless. And then immediately cuts Eli off and sends his son to open up the well and get it started. And then they have a little celebration. Paul Dano's acting here, watching the light slowly leave Eli's eyes as he realizes that he's just been screwed out of gaining influence in the town. Mwah. Mwah. Now, as the celebration starts for the town, we get this kind of weird scene. It kind of creeps me out a little bit. I don't think there's actual subtext for Daniel Plainview being a creep in it. It just feels weird to me. But basically, he grabs Mary during the celebration. Daniel asks if she likes the new dress he bought her. She timidly says yes, a little fearful of him. Then he asks if she's happy he came. That's what kind of makes me weird. Like, what? She says yes. Then he asks if her dad hits her anymore. He's seated only a few feet away from her, or from him, from the dad. Oh, she shakes her head no, and he says, good. Then he basically says that she won't be hit again and that he'll be taking care of her. Again, just kind of creepy. I don't think it's supposed to have these Serbian film undertones. It just feels weird to me. I don't know. It's just... Then Daniel stares at the father until he looks away. Again, this scene does show that competitive nature I talked about earlier, how Daniel didn't do anything for Mary up to this point. But the moment he could screw somebody out of a little bit of claim, he wanted to completely dominate Abel here and just show him, like, I have your land, I bought everything, you're nothing, your daughter is basically my daughter, not yours anymore, dumbass. He does. It's not for Mary's benefit, We also get a recurring theme of Daniel's alcoholism. He's got trouble with the drink. It's not like pivotal to the story. It's just an aspect of Daniel's character. Daniel gets a little too wasted during the celebration and is asleep on the shack floor when his right-hand man Fletcher comes in and wakes him, letting him know somebody was lost down in the well. So somebody died in the oil well. The scene is really quick here, but it's kind of a callback to what happened earlier, kind of showing Daniel again that his actions have consequences. Running this very dangerous oil operation for the sake of monetary gain is dangerous for the people around him. But basically, we get the scene of the man dying, which is terrifying. This metal spike, he like looks up as all that stuff falls down on him. It's like 100 pounds. I think it's equipment or it's just the metal spike. But anyways, it fucking hits him in his head. Again, crushed head in an oil well. Very common death, apparently. No, I wasn't aware, but very common at this time. And they pull him out, and Daniel basically says, you let people know if you go down in the well, tells them to follow procedures, stop being dumbasses. This is not great for Daniel because it looks bad, and Eli will use this to his advantage later, this little fuck up. Now we get a fantastic scene that I love very much. Daniel visits the Church of the Third Revelation, headed by Eli, our pastor. Now, when I had to watch this for the research on this video and taking notes and everything, there's a few scenes like this. I just had to let it play through the first time. I just can't help it. I can't pause. It's so good. It's all acted perfectly. It's all one coherent piece. One shot as well. It's what do they call it? One take? No, not a one take. I can't remember the name of it. But basically, there's no cuts. No cuts. So Daniel comes to the church, and he's watching Eli during one of his sermons, where Eli is kind of reaching his hand out, and he's talking about how God is here and how he has a new way to fight spirits and stuff. Eli goes up to this old woman and tells her and asks her if she has problems with her hands. So basically, does she have arthritis? And she says, yes, I have the arthritis, Eli. And he basically offers to get the spirit out by telling it to leave. And the way that he builds up in this church and everybody begins to fall after, just kind of this rising chant. It reminds me of Midsummer a lot when they're all chanting together. They all begin to kind of rise together, and it's getting louder as they're all realizing, like, oh shit, it's time to fucking rock. It's like a Joel Osteen concert in this little wooden church in Little Boston. And he begins to act like he's exorcising this demon from within the church and getting it out of here. And he throws it out, and he throws his arms up, and everybody screams in elation. And there's Daniel kind of seething in the corner, because I think he's realizing right now, as stupid as he finds all of it, it works. And Eli is very good at it. Something Eli is better than Daniel at. Oh my God. Daniel kind of does a sermon at the end of the movie, almost like he's telling Eli he could do it better. Whoa. Interesting point. Not super important, but just kind of an interesting idea. He has a competition in him. We get a mirrored moment where Daniel is now approaching Eli in the church's domain, right? And kind of like how when Eli went into Daniel's forward operating base near the oil rigging. And Daniel basically asks Eli, tells him they lost a man in the well, and Eli's like, yeah, I heard. And Daniel asks him politely, if you wanted to say a few words, it would be good. Eli says, this could have been avoided if you just let me bless the well. Which is so petty and so Eli, and I love you, Paul Dano. Daniel ignores it and says that, yep, the time for the funeral will be then. And then, again, Eli says it. So Daniel goes, no, the reason why is because my men are up doing your sermons when they should be home resting after a long day's work, but instead they come here, so you need to stop with your stupid sermons. Eli says, no, it's because they drink. They're not supposed to be drinking. So, which is, I don't know if he's saying that they shouldn't be drinking because of the accident or they shouldn't be drinking for religious reasons. But either way, it's kind of another jab. And also, it's almost poking at Daniel as well, because we've seen the trouble he has with drink. It's kind of mocking him in a way. Before Daniel leaves, we just a short pieces of dialogue, but there's so much to chew on. Before Daniel leaves after this little confrontation, he makes comment that, oh, you guys are renovating the church, almost to say, oh yeah, I gave you the money for this church you guys are renovating. That's nice, isn't it? You're welcome. Basically giving him a little, he's just swinging his big oiled up dick onto the table. He goes on to say, and Eli, that was one goddamn hell of a show. Which is instantly telling him he is not the third revelation. He's not a prophet. He's just a good actor. Wow. Woo! Love to see it. I love to see it. Just, so good. So wonderful. I know I say so good a lot, but that's how this movie makes me feel. This movie makes me feel legitimately so happy every time I watch it. Every time I come back to this movie, there's something else there. It always hits me. I don't even know why. I'm not a businessman. I'm not a religious man. I'm not from 1911. I don't know. Man, I really need to identify why this movie hits so much. Maybe it's just because so many concepts in there I love. I love character dramas. I love horror movies. I love good soundtracks. I love cinematography. I love good acting, dialogue, and character change. There's not a lot of character growth in this movie. I don't know. Sorry, tangent. The next scene is Daniel spying like a creep from his FOB, watching as the church is being renovated. And I also love the way that Eli is standing in here. It looks like the introduction of a serial killer. Like, if you've ever seen True Detective, the Green Man, he kind of looks like that guy. He's just this dark silhouette in the middle of this church, which just, like, so ominous. I wonder if that was in the storyboard. It had to be. It's such an iconic shot here. Now shit's gonna get tragic and pick up. We cut to HW being up on a rafter next to the oil rigging, kind of looking down at the metal spike going up and down into the oil and all the workers working it. And he just seems like he's just being a kid, being curious. Daniel's off in his FOB working on some paperwork. And while the men are drilling, they hit, I don't know exactly what it is. I could guess what it is, like from what the movie's telling me, but I don't know the actual oil, like, reasons for it. Anyways, they hit some kind of pressurized pocket of oil, or how I'm thinking of it is that there's a pocket of it, right? And the minute you break that seal, it's all going to shoot up because it's all pressurized and it's been contained. That's how I was thinking about it. I don't know if that's 100% true. Anyways, they have this pocket and the metal rod starts to freak out and the workers realize it's going to blow. So they all scream and they begin running away from it. But HW's still there. So when the air pocket blows up, it blasts him back onto the roof and he's kind of like, you hear ringing and he doesn't know what's going on. And a spout of oil shoots up, I don't know, 50 feet in the air. Ridiculous amount of oil just right into the sky. This massive spout of oil just drenches everything in a black rain. There's this surprisingly really human scene where one of the employees sees HW, the child, rolling around up on the roof, unable to like do anything, and he immediately abandons all caution. This giant spout of oil could be ignited into a ball of flame at any moment, but he just races off. He's going so fast his hat flies off, and he gets up there and he grabs HW and hands him down to Daniel, who has now become aware of the situation. And they're both getting drenched in oil. It's falling down, and he's kind of running back with HW, gets him back to the FOB. Daniel then asks HW maybe a dozen times, did you hit your head? Which I'm sure was a major issue back then. Head injuries, it's probably too complicated to understand how to fix something like that other than lobotomies. So he repeatedly asks him, did you hit your head? Did you hit your head? And we get this really heart-wrenching part where HW is laying there on the table and Daniel, and they're both drenched in oil, the business that Daniel has started, maintained, has decided to commit his life path to. The money literally drenching them in his business. And his adopted son goes, I can't hear my own voice. Oh my God, dude. So heartbreaking. And he says it a couple more times. And Daniel realizes, fuck, that's bad. That's really bad. And he looks back and you could see he's conflicted. He's looking back at the oil. He needs to go deal with this issue, but his adopted son's right here. His business or his boy? His business or his boy? And Daniel picks his business. And you get more heart-wrenching scenes of the boy clawing for him. And he orders one of his workers to hold him down. Cruel, man. Oh, so cruel. Then we have a fun little series of shots. The oil explodes into a ball of burning fire, and Daniel's running around with a sledgehammer, breaking off the kind of like these rigging lines that hold it up so that it can crumble down into the fire easier. And everybody's running around doing this. He's with his right hand man Fletcher, and Fletcher looks kind of taken aback by it. But Daniel begins to laugh and hits him and basically says, like, there's a whole ocean of oil under there. I just have to get at it. I'm the only one that can drill it up. Why do you look so sad? And Fletcher's pretty happy. And then he asks, oh, so is HW okay? Because, oh, why would the father be out here if his son was okay? And Daniel, staring up at the fire, just goes, no, he isn't. Demonic. Straight demonic. That line right there. This is what I'm talking about with the horror movies. That's such a chilling line for a character drama, right? Fletcher goes and runs off after Daniel's adopted son. He does that. We have this series of shots where everybody's staring up at this ball of fire and oil, right? And it's all alighting their eyes, and it really feels reminiscent of Prometheus, but more for me, the coveting of wealth. They're all staring at this ball of fire and realizing how much money that is. That's so much money that's just shooting up into the sky. You get it from Eli, you get it from Daniel, and you get it from HW, which this might be fucked up, but this is what I think. I think in that moment when HW saw that spire of fire, all that oil and money, he wanted to be an oil man right then. That's what I think. I think before it was just because his dad did it. I think right then he thought, I want to do that. Eli obviously looked at it and saw wealth. Daniel looked at it, saw wealth. They see the embodiment of money going up into flames. Daniel stays up through the night watching this ball of fire kind of peter out a little bit until it looks something like this. This is just kind of a rough drawing of one of the images I found, but you get the spire of oil kind of going up and turning into smoke. And then this is before he orders his men, but they basically have these little like dynamite sticks and they roll them with barrels, and they have like one of the guys holding a shield, and they get up and they blow this hole so then it stops spouting fire and they can re-drill again, right? Yeah. And that's the end of this little mini arc here. Back after a little clean shave, hoping that we can just do one long recording session and wrap this little video up. HW has been made deaf by the accident, and we get this really heartbreaking scene where Daniel is stroking his hair and HW is humming to himself, just seemingly because the loss of hearing is kind of confusing, so maybe he's trying to see if he can hear anything or just trying to feel his voice because the sensation of the deafness is probably very new and strange to him. We get another clip where the doctor is trying to take a look at HW's ears to really figure out what's going on. Fletcher, Daniel, and the doctor are all like holding this little boy down as he flails about. It seems that he's understandably acting out, but probably also having trouble communicating his worries, anxieties with the doctor, and the three men can't communicate to him either. So really just a heartbreaking scene, dude. I don't really have anything to add. Move on to another scene of Daniel trying to explain to his son, you want to eat food, and HW is just sitting in bed depressed, just staring at his father as he tries to speak to him, but he can't hear him. Some people might say Daniel is getting frustrated here because he feels guilty for what happened. I don't think that's true. I think the reason that Daniel is becoming so frustrated is because his one mode of power has been kind of sapped away from him, right? The power he holds over people is his speaking. Daniel speaks plainly, within plain view. And now his son can't even hear him. So it doesn't matter what Daniel says, it doesn't matter what backsliding, backtracking, persuading, deceiving, intimidation he uses against his son. He can't communicate it to him. His form of power has kind of been taken away. And I guess it's almost symbolic of the story that HW kind of overcoming his father, right, and becoming better later on is only through the loss of the way that his dad held power over him in the past, right? Or over anybody, which is through words.
This is my son, H.W. Lewis.
So Daniel gets a teacher for HW from San Francisco, and he's kind of at the height of his despair, hoping he can help his son, but not really understanding how. And who but Eli would arrive when Daniel's at his lowest? They're working around a pipeline when Eli arrives, and it's really cool the way this is shot. It's like almost like an old western, the way that Eli approaches, and Daniel's kind of, he's like angled to, like he has a duster on almost, and it looks like he's about to pull a gun off his hip, right? But he's not going to. That's not what this is. But just saying that it's kind of reminiscent the way the camera pans as well. This is a nice subversion of the setup we've had so far between Daniel and Eli, where the usual verbal sparring, right? So Eli marches up with a purpose, and he's given Daniel the ring him around that you owe the Church of the Third Revelation $5,000, you know, and Daniel just slaps him. There's not going to be any conversation here. I think actually what he says is, when are we going to get our money, Daniel? Which is so funny coming from a priest, but he slaps him, he berates him, he calls him pathetic. He asks him when he's going to heal his son's hearing, which is heartbreaking, but really puts into perspective that Daniel really puts the blame on almost everyone else around him, but not himself, right? Maybe internally he blames himself a little, but I mean, he's somewhat at fault for his son. He runs the oil rig, he runs the safety. He probably knew his son was up there, but said, you know, boys will be boys or whatever. Also, he did promise Eli that money, and he's withholding it again. So, I mean, Eli's not technically wrong here, but it doesn't really matter. Daniel beats the shit out of him, puts him in the mud, and tells him he'll bury him underground, which, I mean, not against his MO later in the movie, probably would bury him underground. Hey, no, down, psst, psst, no. Your big fucking butt is in the way of the light. Down. Oh my god, let go. No. This whole thing really puts into perspective how egotistical Daniel is, right? It's never his fault. It's his workers who fell down the oil shaft. Guys, just follow procedure. It's people that won't sell him every morsel of land. Just sell me your shit for as cheap as I want it. It's Eli's fault for not healing his son's hearing that Daniel basically caused. People are the problem, not his ideology, and he'll make that abundantly clear through the rest of this movie. And it's just really great acting by Daniel Day-Lewis, to be honest. Sorry, Mr. Lewis. I've told myself I would do that. But what about Paul Dano? What about his spotlight? Well, we get a great dinner scene with him that his delivery of lines here always kills me. I love this scene. Probably one of the most ominous scenes in the entire movie. We start with Abel, the Sunday father, Eli's father, eating dinner and just kind of staring down at his plate. And he slowly looks up, and we get this really terrifying visage of Eli covered in mud, hands down at his side, and he's just staring like through his father. Just staring daggers, right? And his hands are completely down. You can tell he's like on the verge of just snapping. He calls Abel stupid, weak, and lazy. And he tells him God doesn't save stupid people. Eli, not very Baptist Christian of you. Holy shit. He tells him that he basically failed and he let Daniel come into their life and fuck them up. And kind of mirroring Daniel here, mirroring Daniel here. Eli's putting all the blame on his father, but we already realized that Eli runs this household. He was the one that agreed to the deal with Daniel at the end of the day. But he wants to blame his father, which, to be fair, his father is pathetic and didn't take charge. It's crazy how the sound slowly leaves the room. I think the editor actually cut all the sound the moment before Eli launches across the table in this jump scare, and it gets me every time. He launches across, he grabs Abel, and he basically just kind of beats him and holds him down. He doesn't even acknowledge his father's family. He's like holding this old man down, and it's really kind of terrifying and horrible, but he holds this old man down, and he goes, "Shut your mouth, Abel!" Which is really funny. He's like, "Be quiet." And it really just sells that he doesn't even see his father's family. Like, his father failed them. He's not family anymore. And he tells his dad it was Paul who told Daniel that they have oil up there and that they have a stupid father who can be taken advantage of. Which, he's not necessarily wrong in some ways. I don't know how Paul felt about his family. I mean, Paul left. Maybe that should tell us everything. But Paul Dano's acting in this scene is immersive. That's how I'd say it. It's very, I feel the energy of Eli like radiating from the screen. Just this like abject humiliation turned into rage, turned into fury, turned into self-assured righteousness at the end when he's like, "A stupid son to a stupid father." When he's talking about Paul and Abel, really just, ow. I wrote this in the script. This should let you know where my mind was at, apparently. A priest that beats his father for his weakness. There's got to be a joke in there. A father beats his father for the sins. Euler? No, not quite. Let's just move on. I'm tired. Now comes an important new side character, Henry, which he is important. I feel bad for just drawing this little doodle of him down here, but yeah, he's an important character, I promise. If you were tracking the arcs of Daniel, Henry kind of leads to, I guess, what would be his descent. Henry is Daniel's long-lost brother. Don't look any deeper into it. He comes to tell Daniel that their father has passed. That he was his estranged brother, and he saw that he hit a well in the newspaper, and so thought he'd come tell him the news. Daniel kind of is angling around him, but he does seem to have a lot of personal information about Daniel's family, which makes him think, oh, he probably does, like, he probably is related to me. Especially because in a time like that, it's not like there was the internet where you could just look up a family tree. Like, if a dude knew your mom, knew your dad's name, like, that meant something. A lot of evidence. We move on, and they're talking about oil and success, and they're all eating soup at this little dinner table. And it's kind of sickening only because I think this is the moment that Daniel decided something. Daniel will go on to talk about family and how he kind of holds family in high regard in a strange way for somebody who hates humanity so much, right? That's why he holds HW so close. But HW has grown distant because of his obvious deafness and his father's inability to communicate, and Daniel has become estranged from him in a way. So now comes this new family member, and I can't help but feel like it's a replacement in Daniel's mind the minute he arrives, which is just so sad. Daniel forces his son to drink this disgusting whiskey milk mix, and HW, I feel for you. That's horrid. But kind of a callback to the baby scene now that I think about it. It's almost like Daniel's like trying to recapture when his son was just, like a baby. It's like he's recapturing, but now his son doesn't want to drink anymore. His son has become disillusioned a little bit. Maybe looking a little too deep, but I still find it interesting. We get a small exchange between Henry and Daniel where Henry says he doesn't need any favors, and Daniel asks plainly, does he want to work with him? And Henry says, I would like to work with you. And Daniel asks, what do you want? He says nothing, which instantly puts Daniel on the fence. As somebody who can't comprehend the idea that somebody doesn't want something, though to be fair, he's not wrong to be suspicious of this new brother of his. HW is looking through Henry's items and finds a journal with a picture of Daniel's mom in it. Then we get an overlay of audio and kind of transition into the next scene. They're sitting around a fire drinking. This might give us the most insight into Daniel's backstory and kind of origin story, if you will, of the entire movie. Henry asks why Daniel left their home and asks why he didn't get along with his father. Daniel kind of just says struck out on his own, and he completely ignores the father portion, but we can't really dig into that because we don't get any more information on his father other than he has passed away. So, but just kind of a detail that it seems that Daniel didn't get along with his dad, which might speak to his weird father-son relationship with his adopted son, HW. We launch into one of the best dialogues of the entire movie, where Daniel is basically asking Henry, "Are you an angry person, Henry?" And Henry says, "No," or envious. I think, "Do you get envious?" And Henry basically says, "No, I don't think I am." Daniel then says, "I have a competition in me. I want no one else to succeed. I hate most people." Which, that last part at least, completely true. I think the majority of what he says is true here. I think Daniel is one of the most envious characters in all of fiction. He just wants what others have. He wants to beat others down. That competition in him is envy. I mean, greed can fit the bill because he's wanting for more monetary gain, but he never really enjoys the wealth. You know what I mean? It's more about the chase, it's about the dealing, it's about the backtracking, it's about the lying, and even the killing for him. As long as he's defeating others, he's obtaining enjoyment. He hates other people. He wants to be better than them. He envies after what they have. I'm sure he even envies after Eli's church and his congregation and his sense of community, but you'll see he'll kind of covet that a little bit. A little bit. Daniel continues to detail how he hates most people and how he sees nothing worth liking. How his hate has grown over the years little by little. And this, I think, is completely accurate to his character. Daniel really just hates people. He sees what they want. He sees their desires. He uses it against them, and then he calls them pathetic for having those desires or those wants in life, right? But then he just wants what they have. It's so strange. He's such a strange character. It's so malicious. Henry says the fight and the competition in him has kind of gone out. It's been leached over the years from hardship and prison life. Daniel basically says, well, if it's in me, it's in you, which is foreshadowing because Henry is really not a competitive person. He asks him what he's going to do with HW. He says, I don't know. I don't know if your sound comes back to you. Henry then asks what happened to his mother, and Daniel kind of has this unhinged look, very similar to this drawing here that we'll see later in the movie as well, but he says, I don't want to talk about those things. So it seems that he's tired of the deception in a way. That's how I see it. He's tired of the deception that HW is his real son, and that the mentioning of the mother just reminds him he's not actually his blood, which I think also spurs on the decision that will be coming very soon. And he says, I see the worst in people. I don't have to see past that to get all I need. Again, very concise by Daniel here. This is accurate in every sense of the notion. This is who he is. He is someone who only sees the worst in another and then basically get all he needs, right? So you're just a tool. The people are just tools. And once he sees the worst in you, he knows what he can use against you and use it well. Sad. Daniel ends with some genuinely kind words, which is very out of character for him. But he basically tells Henry that he's breathed new life into him, that having another family member here has really brought him a lot of joy. He feels like he's kind of he's missing community, right? Like he hates humanity, but I think a part of him envies that too, that people have friends and family to go to. And he misses his family dearly, apparently. HW then lights a fire in the cabin while Daniel and Henry are asleep. Now, I've gone back and forth about this possible theory I have about this, which is he puts a big pile of clothes by Henry's bed, which makes me think he might be trying to burn Henry specifically. Now, earlier, HW went through the journal of Henry's, which might have meant he knew that Henry wasn't telling the whole truth because there's a lot of information in there. And if he's smart enough to glean that, he may have tried to kill Henry. Now, most likely this isn't what actually happened. He was most likely just acting out, just being a delinquent because of everything that's going on in his life, obviously. What are you going to expect? But it's an interesting theory nonetheless, I think. Daniel then chases HW, grabs him, and we get a cutaway to a very, very somber, tragic scene where Daniel makes a pretty vile decision. Daniel and HW are on a train. Daniel's trying to communicate with HW that he needs to go talk to the conductor really quick and that he needs to stay here while he goes and talks to the conductor. HW looks up at him, and Mr. Lewis is acting. A single tear falls in the middle of this conversation while he's trying to keep his grief hidden. And HW watches it fall, and then Daniel says, all right, I'll be back in a second. And he leaves the train. Train starts up, and one of Daniel's men gets on board with HW to take him away. And HW is screaming through the window of the train, and Daniel's ignoring him, and we get this panning shot where Daniel's looking straight ahead because his goal lies in oil. And until his son can listen again, he doesn't want to talk to him. Fucking sad. Basically, Daniel sent HW away to a deaf school on a train with one of his employees. He didn't take him himself. He didn't move for his boy. He sent him practically alone in a foreign place with a new disability he's never had to deal with. Vile behavior. Suddenly we're in a business scene, which is, I think it's purposely a stark contrast to kind of show us where is Daniel's head at while he's trying to make business dealings. Honestly, this part where Captain I'm an Oil Man slams his big tycoon cock on the table in front of these other businessmen is awesome. Figuratively, not literally. Probably shouldn't use oil and big tycoon dick in the same sentence. Maybe not say that at all. Moving on. Anyways, it's clear that Daniel from the beginning is not afraid of these men, and he's ready to make some hardcore deals. Setting the stage here, these guys are a big business. They're Standard Oil, which is just like a pretty large oil company, right? They're millionaires, and they're here to buy up properties from Daniel, who's still technically at the moment a mid-sized company. But Daniel's smart enough to know his well here in Little Boston is big-time money. He's not stupid. It's so well filmed and acted here that them talking about shipping costs has me completely enthralled. The two men are basically trying to buy up his Little Boston property, and they're willing to offer him millions of dollars in exchange for this, which is a big deal and could probably set Daniel permanently into retirement, but he's not very interested. He asks if they would lower railroad shipping costs, and they say, oh, that's railroad business. But Daniel says, oh, you don't own the railroads? Which basically they do own the railroads. And we get this really funny scene where Tilford, which is one of the men he's dealing with, which we'll kind of see it come up again, and he goes, all right. Look at that, how unprofessional Daniel is, which I think we've all felt that before, where you're trying to be civil and somebody's being a dick, so you're just like, nah, all right, like just trying to keep your cool. Now, the problem with this meeting is not the actual deals going on. I mean, they already bought one of his little stakes, and he said, that's a deal. And so it's pretty okay, but they keep bringing up his son, saying that if they made him a millionaire, he could spend more time with his son, which is kind of a low blow. Now, I don't know if they're aware of what happened to his son, that he was sent away, or if they think they're just saying that because his son's deaf. But yeah, it's definitely pretty rude. They keep bringing it up. Then, after a few more comments, Daniel says, let me make sure I get this right. Oh, yeah, okay, we're good. Sorry. Daniel, after a few more of these comments, says, one night, I'm going to come to you inside of your house, or wherever you're sleeping, and I'm going to cut your throat. And Tilford says, what? He's not even intimidated, just more completely taken aback by the situation he has found himself in. It's clear that Mr. Plainview here has gone completely off the deep end, just kind of pressuring Tilford. And Tilford, I mean, to his credit, he doesn't shy away from Daniel. He looks through him, right? He's a good businessman. Daniel decides to leave, and it's clear that he's in a very dark place right now, and Henry is his only rock. Foreshadowing. We move on to a discussion about the land holdout, all that land that Daniel had been attempting to buy, talking to the real estate agent, right? There's a holdout, the Bandy Tract, which was mentioned earlier, and Daniel doesn't understand why he doesn't own it, and he basically says, the guy wants to talk to you in person, he's not, I could go talk to him again, and all this shit, right? But Al basically goes, well, why don't you, Al is the real estate agent, Al basically goes, why don't you just build around the mountains? And then Daniel's like, build around 50 miles of Appalachian? He's like, don't be thick with me, Al.
Don't be thick in front of me, Al.
I'm going to have to agree with Daniel here, though. That was pretty dumb. That's pretty dumb. Why, 50 miles of mountains, you think he's going to build a pipeline around that shit? That's pretty wild. I'm a bit of an oil connoisseur myself now, so as a fellow oil man, I get you, Daniel. Daniel basically tells Al that he's going to go speak to him himself since Al can't get shit figured out. Sorry, dude, that's not fair. Not fair to Al. Daniel then talks to Fletcher's right-hand man that took his son to the deaf school and basically asks him about the parameters of the living situation. And Fletcher says it's a big room and all this other stuff. Then Fletcher asks, are you taking Henry to talk to Standard Oil? Like, Fletcher was his right-hand man, and suddenly, now that Henry's here, he's just been kind of replaced. And Daniel doesn't even answer him. He just leaves, which is fucked up. I needed an estranged brother like I need a deaf boy to light my cabin on fire. Just a classic Plainviewism. Anyways, we get more horror movie influences here, which is, you know, what I love, as I've mentioned earlier. Daniel and Henry arrive deep into Bandy's property and are talking to his grandson. We get this great shot where the grandson like is in the darkness of the hovel they're kind of living in and exits. And Daniel is telling him, like, where's your grandfather? He says his grandfather's gone and that he won't talk oil until his grandfather's back, right? And Daniel says, let him know. I'll be here to talk whenever he wants. Then Daniel passes through the, past the window, and he's looking into this dark interior. And you can see the schemes are already forming in his mind. He's thinking of all the cherry-picked words he could use to sell this man. The intimidation he can make to push him to sell to him easier. Daniel thinks he knows everything, right? Daniel, very egotistical, very envious. And he thinks that he's going to get this old man to sell real easy once he gets a hold of him. How wrong he is. Then it's montage time. We get a bunch of shots of Daniel and Henry basically measuring out the land and figuring out where they're going to put this pipeline once they get it. Because obviously they're going to buy this land. I mean, it's Daniel Plainview. He gets what he wants. We get this really good shot that I love. I probably should have drawn it here. I like it so much, but it's fine. Where he's standing between these two massive mountains in Appalachia. And we have mist everywhere in this green, lush ground, which in a way doesn't really remind me of American soil. It reminds me more of Chinese greenery around the border of Tibet. I don't know if that makes sense. The like lushness. I don't know. It just does. I really like this shot a lot, though. The music is very playful, but also ominous. It becomes more and more unhinged as the strings kind of join in, and it's like dun, 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 until it's at a point where you're wondering, well, what the fuck are we leading to? Why is this so dark right now? We're good things are happening. We'll find out. Sorry for the shower in the background. Can't do anything about that. Anyways, we get a kind of weird spot here. So we get to the next scene, and they're at the ocean, Henry and Daniel, which is off Bandy's track. I think past Bandy's tract, right? And they're kind of doing swimming and shit. But we get I don't know if it's a flashback or if. So there's two ways you can look at this, right? Either they went to Bandy's, realized he wasn't ready to sell, went back, made a deal with Union anyway, which they basically own the land in between Bandy's and the ocean. That's how I understand it. made a deal with Union anyways to build the pipeline because he's so confident he's going to get it, then went back to Bandy's tract where they're doing the ocean stuff right now. Or this is a flashback where they made the deal with Union already. Then they went and did this whole Bandy thing, which not 100%, but it's not really important. What you need to understand is that they made a deal with Union Oil without even getting permission from Bandy yet, right? So he's under the assumption they're going to get the land and made the deal with Union before it's ever going to benefit him, which is pretty dangerous. But this scene is thick with important dialogue, so forgive the gratuitous analysis here, okay? Whew. Daniel and Henry just got done with a swim, and they're chatting up a little bit. Daniel details a house made in Fond du Lac, which everybody else says it's called Fond du Lac online, but anyways, it's his hometown. It's in Wisconsin. Anyways, it was made by a man named John Hollister, and Daniel says he thought it was the most beautiful house he'd ever seen in his entire life. You hear Daniel says, as a kid, he wanted it, which really great writing here. It's a kind of the, how do I say this? It's telling us that from the very beginning he was envious, right? This was my point about him not ever having changed. He was always an envious person. Maybe he could have been a little less envious, or maybe he could have angled it to be a more ethical person. But at the end of the day, he's an envious human being. He wanted that house from John Hollister. Wanted it for him and his family, right? In a way, I'm kind of reminded of the scene where Daniel's staring up at the pyre of fire. It's almost like he was looking at it, and I could imagine a childhood version of himself staring at the house. It's the pyre of desire. It's the idol at which he worships. It's the thing he covets. He wants it, right? Just like how the oil was something he wants, that house was something he wanted. Now in the script, I kind of talked about how it's interesting that he mentions he wanted to have children in it and have them running around and be kind of a family man, right? And I think around this point in the script, I was realizing, I guess he is a family man. He cares about his son and he cares about his brother, even with his strange misgivings. But now it's quite obvious, he was a family man in his own strange way, very strange way. Henry tells Daniel he can have anything he wants, and Henry really is just kind of a very whatever kind of character where he's just kind of going through life, just going through the motions, where Daniel's very focused. He's got determination, right? But Daniel says he might build a house close to the ocean where they are at the moment. And Henry asks if he'd make it look like the house in Fond du Lac, or Fond du Lac. I guess I'll just say how they say it, Fond du Lac. Daniel says, I think if I saw that house now, it would make me sick. Which, very interesting. Now, you can hold it to two kind of points here on this single line of dialogue. One is that he means sick as in his wealth and power have grown so above it that house is like nothing to him. And it's just sickening, the idea that he ever thought it was good, right? Another could be sick with envy, a pretty popular saying, right? But what I mean by that is that the house that he imagines in his head can never be brought into fruition. The John Hollister house could be rebuilt, but that's not the idea. That house is rebuilt, it will never be as good as it was when he was a kid, right? That envy he felt, that wondrous house, that house that he always wanted, right? Something that big, something that wonderful. It can never be brought into reality because it exists in a childhood self, and he envies his younger self, and he envies what that house used to mean, and it can never be that good ever again. The chase, it's all about the chase. Now it's time for the shoe to drop. Daniel makes a kind of passing joke, get the ladies liquored up and take them to the peach tree dance, and this joke seems to pass over Henry's head, and then he repeats it again, and he stares at Henry, and he goes, I say get him liquored up and bring him to the peach tree dance. And he's kind of smiling with this childlike wonder that's so heartbreaking. And Henry just goes, yeah. And Daniel's face in this moment, like the realization that this man has been lying. He's not his brother. He doesn't get the inside joke of the town they're from. He would completely understand this if he truly was his brother. But he's not his brother. The way Mr. Lewis conveys the confusion, it's first annoyance that Henry didn't get the joke. Then it's confusion. He should understand the joke. Then realization that he's just been lying to him. A break into grief where he's so struck by the pain. A mouthed no. Rage. Then quiet acceptance, and he flees to the ocean to go swimming. And it's just delivered perfectly. This is what the fuck I'm talking about. This movie, there will be perfect acting in this movie. That's what the title should have been. We get a beautiful shot that reminds me of something, but I can't figure it out. I still haven't been able to figure it out since I got this script done. But Henry's bathed in shadow and Daniel's in the light before he leaves, and Henry's head comes up into the light for just a second and then back into shadow, which kind of reminds me of Cain and Abel. But let's bar that biblical reference for a second and consider what the movie is metaphorically trying to tell us, which is I think that Daniel's in the light because he's realized the truth, right? Daniel has been fire in a lot of ways in this movie represents the truth, I think, and it's kind of like desire and ideas and truth. It's like when you understand something or you're talking to somebody. These are frivolous. Whatever thoughts. Okay, moving forward. Daniel's in the light. He understands Henry's been lying to him. Very important for his character right now. Henry brings his head up into the light. I think for a moment he thinks, does Daniel know? And then he puts his head back in shadow as if to say, no, I don't think he knows. Wow, that's great. That's fantastic. That's fucking fantastic. The image of Daniel seething in the middle of the ocean and with the overlay of the bar and people dancing and screaming just makes this so demonic, which is a way I would describe Daniel going forward in a lot of scenes. He's just seething in the middle of the ocean, and this writhing like mass of people and noise just kind of overbearing from the next scene. We get a cut, and Daniel's sitting in the bar, kind of sitting down, staring at nothing, and there's people dancing and singing, and it seems Henry has found some kind of lady that he's having fun with, and he asks Daniel for a bunch of money while he's just drunk as shit. And Daniel's pretty drunk here too. And he gives Henry the money, and Henry goes off. And I don't know if this is a way for Daniel to just get him more drunk, if he is giving him his last little fun before what's going to happen, or I don't know. I don't know why he's giving him the money. I guess he's just scheming. I think getting him liquored up makes the most sense, especially after the earlier joke. It would make sense in the script to be like, get them liquored up at the Peachtree dance and then get them liquored up at the bar before something bad happens. I want to reiterate that Paul Anderson is very detail-oriented as a director. Here in this scene, we have Daniel with some gardening gloves. Great gloves for digging, which should instantly put you off on guard, because this is not good. It's not good for Henry, who is passed out drunk on the ground. He wakes Henry up by putting a revolver in his face, and Henry is obviously kind of out of his wits. Daniel asks him a very pertinent family question that anybody that knows the family or knows the town would obviously know this, and Henry cannot answer, because Henry is not Daniel's brother. Henry knew Daniel's brother, and his brother had a bad case of tuberculosis and had always wanted to come meet Daniel but never got the chance because he died before he could. And he had told Noah, sorry, this is the real man's name. His real name is Noah. He told Noah about this, and Noah took his identity in order to get some benefits, obviously. Really heartbreaking that Noah was unable to save Henry. Save Daniel? I don't know. Maybe there's something there I'm not seeing. Henry promises Daniel that he never wanted to hurt him and that he'll just leave. He'll leave forever. He'll never see him again. Daniel's look tells you everything. This is, I think, fairly close to the look he gets. Just crooked eyebrow, like kind of a squinted eye, one open, gritted teeth with slightly parted lips. Just so unhinged. Mr. Lewis's performance is absolutely unhinged. And he presses the revolver up to Henry and shoots him. The headshot not apparently killing Henry instantly, as he slowly kind of fades away. Daniel presses the gun up again, but instead of giving him the mercy shot, he lets him slowly die. Oof. I mean, yeah, Henry's definitely a shitty person for what he did, but goddamn, that's cold. Daniel then begins digging. This is probably Daniel's first truly evil action in the movie. There's things fucked up that he did, but this is evil. Like, Noah was a snake oil salesman and he did fucked up things. And if Daniel did something in a moment of anger, whatever. He planned Noah's murder here. There's no question about it. He got him drunk. He took him out somewhere. He asked him questions he wanted to ask. And then once he got everything he needed, he killed him and buried him. Noah's not that bad of a guy. He's a shitty person. But, like, when it comes to actually getting along with people and being nice to people, he's fairly easy to get along with. He did not deserve to die. We get a somber moment where Daniel cracks open the diary Noah was using to kind of fake his way into the life. Daniel finds a childhood photo of his brother, his dead brother, and he weeps. Or it might be him. It might be Daniel. I don't know. Anyways, Daniel realizes the journal is real, and he cries. One of the only couple times he does it in the entire movie, he just weeps. We get this really good shot composition of the fire and the carpet and this drunken man kind of stumbling back into sleep. We get a very underrated scene come morning. Boom! A gunshot wakes Daniel up. Very underrated scene now appears. Daniel's suddenly awoken. And who is it but William Bandy? The guy referenced throughout the entirety of the movie so far. But who is William Bandy? Possibly the antithesis to our oil man, Daniel Plainview, in a lot of ways. Or maybe more like a dark mirror. I think that if Daniel would have taken a religious path in life, he would have really ended up like Bandy in a lot of ways. Owning land far away from others with a small family that he takes care of on his land. Not backing down from his own ideology, mentally and verbally sparring with people to get what he wants. But Bandy's definitely a little bit more moral, I would say. Bandy details that God has told him that in order to build his pipeline, Daniel must be baptized at the Church of the Third Revelation. In other words, the church Eli heads, which not a great deal for Daniel. He'd have to swallow his pride. So Daniel offers $3,000. $5,000 so that he doesn't have to do that. And he says he has to wash away his sins. Daniel kind of plays dumb, so Bandy hands him the revolver he used to kill Noah. What a bombshell. Bandy bombshell, everyone. Okay, so anybody that's watching this, like actually watching the video, not just listening. Sorry, I got a new getup. I found my old one. It took me 20 minutes of searching around the house, but I found it. Then I realized how uncomfortable it was, and plus I have this shirt. This I don't know if you can really see it, but it says "I drink your milkshake," which will be that's a little foreshadowing for the ending. But for the audio listeners, I guess for the video watchers as well, the audio is improved. I finally figured out how to fix that with the mic. So, I mean, sorry in advance. But I already recorded like 3 hours, so I'm probably not gonna redo that. My bad, guys. But anyways, let's move on to the next portion. One of the most famous scenes in the entire movie, if not the most famous. I guess the ending is probably the most famous. Anyways, this is a very important scene, so it's probably going to be a lot of analysis on here, so just bear with me, okay? We begin with Eli speaking a very popular Calvinist belief, the idea of predestination. I think I mentioned it earlier, but I'll restate it. Eli calls his church the Church of the Third Revelation, which basically he's putting himself, that's pretty blasphemous, he's putting himself on the same level as Jesus and Moses. Which, yeah, dude, that's not a good look, Eli. Not a good look. Eli elaborates on the Calvinist idea, talking about how it's, he would love if everyone could go to heaven, but it's a lie that everybody could go to heaven, Not everybody's chosen for heaven. Then we have him not so subtly kind of allude. Daniel's in the audience, by the way. He's come to do the baptism. And not so subtly, Eli goes, "Do we have a sinner in here?" Kind of looking around the room, and you can see Daniel is coming to terms with the fact that he's going to have to get up on that stupid stage that he hates so much and be basically bullied by probably his mortal enemy, his nemesis of sorts. Eli repeats the question if he has a sinner in need of cleansing, perhaps a new member. And Daniel stands up, "Yes, I'm a sinner." Yes, I'm very, very businesslike almost, just like asserts it. Not, there's no reverence in it. Tries to avoid the embarrassment by just speaking plainly. Bandy is sitting next to him and takes his hat. Daniel joins Eli up on the stage, and Eli basically says, "Thank you, brother Daniel." And the show is about to begin, ladies and gentlemen. This scene, so wonderful. Notable shot here. I kind of tried to recreate it on this whiteboard, but I think I'll put it up on screen too. But basically, Daniel is looking up, and there's the cross kind of framed behind him because they have this cross in the church that they carved out. It's very beautiful, very wonderful shot. I can't remember the name of it's like a cinematography strategy. Basically, the ethos, or what the fuck? Why am I speaking in big words? The idea of the cinematography concept is that lines are pointing towards your characters or towards things you want people to look at, right? Pretty simple. So the cross carved into the walls of the church are pointing at Daniel because the cross is framed behind him, which makes it look very interesting. Your eyes are just drawn to his face as he looks up. Eli tells Daniel to get down on his knees. And another frame shot where the cross is kind of lying above Daniel, and it really looks like it's weighing him down almost, which is just great symbolism. I've got nothing to complain about here. Really great. Eli makes it clear to Daniel, the fact isn't lost on him or the irony or the fact maybe that now Daniel's in a position of weakness in Eli's place of worship, right? Like Eli's not going to him on his oil fields. Daniel's coming to him in his church. So Eli's going to make the best of this. He tells him to get down on his knees, and he tells him to speak to the Lord, like look up and speak to him. And Daniel says, "What do you want me to say?" Which, big mistake by our primary character, because he should know, being an egomaniac that Daniel is, he should understand that his brother Eli he's the exact same way. So when he asks him what he wants him to say, Eli's going to tell him exactly what he wants him to say. Paul Dano then begins on maybe one of the best performances of his entire career. And he's had a very storied career, so that's no small feat by him. Eli brings up some of Daniel's sins, basically, saying that he came to Little Boston and he's brought good and wealth, but he's also brought his bad habits and bad dealings as a backslider. Which he's almost holding up a counter argument just to batter it down with the whole good wealth and stuff. And I think that's the last straw, man. We're going to move on. "You have abandoned your child that you raised. You have abandoned all because he was sick and you have sinned." That's really good delivery. I can taste the venom as he's saying it to Daniel. And it's just cutting so deep for our main character. Just he knows he can't really say anything back because he has to deliver good on this deal if he wants that pipeline. Daniel begins to say he's a sinner. He's kind of acting like a schoolboy being lectured to now, where he's just like if your teacher was like, say that you failed, or say that you're sorry, and you're like, "I'm sorry." Like where you're like, "God, I don't want to, but if I don't, then I'm in trouble." It's kind of what he's saying. He's saying, "I am a sinner." And he's kind of looking around, "I am a sinner." And he repeats it. And he keeps telling him to repeat, "I am a sinner. I am a sinner." And Eli keeps bringing up, "You have abandoned your child." Which is just so cruel. Like, listen, Daniel's not a good character as we've established, but oh my God, dude, what a vile thing to say to another human being. It's not that it's not that it's wrong, right? Like Daniel honestly probably deserves a comment like that. Like admit like how terrible you are. You have abandoned your child. If I heard my friends like had an adopted kid, right, and he got deaf and they didn't know what to do, so they sent him like a state away to get like to a school and didn't talk to them and didn't tell them they were gonna do it, I'd be like, dude, what the fuck? So, I mean, it just feels so vile because it's cutting so deep, but it's not like it's undeserved. He brings up this comment time and time again, kind of with the normal baptism sermons. He's talking about how he keeps telling him he wants the blood, that Daniel wants the blood of the Lamb, and that he's sorry, Lord, for what he's done, and he's never going to backslide again. But he keeps bringing up you abandoned your child. And Daniel kind of gives him this hot, fiery stare of just the essence of fury. But Eli doesn't back down. He knows that Daniel's fucked here. Daniel has to listen to him. And Daniel knows he doesn't have power in this moment. And so Daniel admits more to himself than anybody else that he goes, I've abandoned my child. And he doesn't look at the congregation. A very great performance by Mr. Lewis here. He looks down at the ground, the most ashamed our character will ever be is in this moment where he has to say this. We finally have Daniel kind of break, like an explosion of emotion, as he's reminded time and time again of his son that he abandoned. I mean, his worst sin, by far his worst sin. Kind of, yeah, I guess it's kind of makes sense in the church that he would give his greatest confession here in the church of the third revelation. Every muscle in his face tightens and he just screams out, I abandoned my child. I abandoned my child. I abandoned my boy. And it's so... Oh, God, it makes me want to cry because at the end, his voice cracks and is kind of strong. He's like kind of standing tall on his knees. And then the last one, it's like the words are kind of like crawling out of him as he's saying it. His voice cracks and he almost cries and collapses. And then he returns to the oil man caricature that we know. And he kind of reforms himself, this shield. He puts it back up and he kind of tries to reassert himself in this very bleak situation where he goes, give me the bloody lie, give me the blood, Lord, and let me get away. Where he's basically begging for the blood, which will be the water in this situation that will complete his baptism, but he wants to leave so bad. We've never seen our character this uncomfortable. This is definitely his lowest point, but also it kind of becomes his highest point, which you'll see. But Eli begins to slap the shit out of Daniel. I think Eli slapping him here kind of brings him back almost in a way where he's like, oh, I did it. That's why I think his reaction is so funny here, because he realizes that, oh, I've done it. I'm going to get that deal with Bandy, and I'm going to be the richest oil tycoon. I've admitted my greatest guilt in front of everybody. There's no reason to lie anymore to anyone. I'm not ashamed. And then all he has to do now is just theatrics and deal with a farcical prophet he doesn't even believe in. So when Eli slaps him and he starts chuckling and going, where's your God? Where's your God? And Eli is slapping him harder and harder. And he goes, there he is. It's kind of, it's mocking Eli because he's saying that basically God isn't real and that the only reason that the church or they wield any power is because they are physically using people, violence, whatever it takes, in order to enact the idea of this zealotry, right? The only time that Daniel sees Eli's God is when Eli is hitting him. Kind of an interesting breakdown, but I think it's true. Eli finally asks him if he accepts Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. The way Daniel says this always kills me, where he goes, yes, I do. Just like he's like, I did the shit. Yes, I do. Yeah, hell yeah, They begin to baptize him, and Daniel flicks all the water off him, very refreshed. And I never noticed this, because I don't think I ever watched with subtitles, even though I've watched this 10 times at least. But there's, when he leans forward after the baptism, he goes, there's a pipeline. As in like,
oh, the show's over. I did that shit and I get the deal. Boom, kind of thing, you know? We then get a kind of moment that is argued online a little bit about what Daniel could have possibly said, and I've always kind of wondered, but I never looked into it. He walks up to Eli as Eli's standing behind his podium, shakes his hand, but his back is turned to the camera. He says something to Eli as he shakes his hand, but we can't see what he says. Now, I saw a really interesting comment online, actually, that people were saying that it's possible that he said, "I will eat you," because there's a scene at the end of the movie where he's yelling at Eli and he says, "I told you I would eat you," but we never hear that anywhere else in the movie. So it might have been in that moment that he said that, which I could see that being true, if not a little strange. But I mean, I guess you'll never be satisfied with any answer because you're expecting something even crazier you didn't see. Oh, I am the Church of the Third Revelation. Yeah, I was thinking this is just a possibility, but like what he said earlier, like that was one goddamn hell of a show. When he said that earlier in the movie, I think that could be interesting, but not necessarily true. Just a little beat. Either way, Eli looks like he pissed his pants after what Daniel said to him. Sorry, just a little intermission, if you will. If I can figure out how to make chapters, maybe I'll have a chapter here. Like I kind of said at the beginning, this wasn't meant to be this long, but I do want to know if you guys think this video is worthwhile, barring the audio problems I had in the first half here. Do you think this video should I make more movie analysis like this, or do you think I should move on to something else? I've never tried long form content like this. It doesn't take a lot of editing, but takes a lot of time to record and script write. I mean, I could probably pump these out faster if I had an editor, but if you checked my sub count, you'd see that not a lot of time reason for investment. I just would like to know what you guys think of it. So please do let me know if you're like, is kind of derivative, or if you don't find I'm saying anything new or wasn't interesting enough to keep you. Please tell me the criticisms. I would appreciate that so that I can make new content. But at the very least, I'm enjoying making the videos, so there's value. That I'm having value in this. This is fun because then I can talk to other people about There Will Be Blood with even more in-depth ideas, because I've always believed in the idea that I learn best when I'm teaching somebody else about something. That's just like how I learn, is when I'm saying it out loud, it becomes more ingrained, I guess. Anyways, moving on. Back to the blood. We get a little bit of a reward for Daniel after all the shit he's gone through, right? After his lowest point. So Daniel's at the pipeline, it's being built, so that his goal has been achieved. Boom. He's like, yep, we made it. Then a car drives up and his son has been returned to him, HW. Daniel walks up and hugs his son and he goes, "That does me good." Which, just thinking, I mean, I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist for this, but pretty selfish of Daniel to say it like that. That HW has returned, and there's no sorry, there's no like, "I'm so glad you're back." It's, "That does me good." Wow, that writing is perfect. Or if that was Lewis doing some improvising, just dialogue, perfect as well. Just great selling of Daniel as a character. It's these little details that really make him so real. That does me good. That's exactly what he would say. There's no like in my mind where I'm like, oh, that kind of feels out of character, or oh, I think he'd say this. That is exactly what he would say. That does me good. I needed this. And Daniel begins to show HW around the pipeline, kind of showing it off. And HW slaps him, which, get him, HW. Holy fuck, dude. Your dad is a real cocksucker sometimes. And they get into a little scuffle, and Daniel basically tells him to stop. And then they kind of sit there huffing and puffing. And we get a cut to a restaurant scene. Lunchtime, I think? I don't know. Something like that. For the restaurant scene, I was going to do a little like funny thing where I was going to put I just had a steak, and I'm coming back to record, and I should have put the like plate here with the bone on it, but I totally forgot. Probably would have been a little gross anyways, even if it was a neat little whatever. Now, the thing that fucks me up about this part is that in my script, I think I wrote more about this scene than the church scene. I don't know why I was so focused on it, probably because I never analyzed it before. Minor note, I really enjoy how this movie does prelapse or overlays where the audio is running from the next scene before we make the cut. It just makes the viewing experience smoother, and I just think generally a better time. So a small note, but I like it. I wanted to mention it. And so they do that in this scene. And we are now in a restaurant, and Daniel's with HW. This is a very cute father-son scene, even if it's awkward and ends up not great. Daniel tells his son that they need to get some steak in him, so they order some food, and they're waiting. And who else but Standard Oil walks into the restaurant and finds their own table. Standard Oil, if you've forgotten, are the businessmen. Specifically, Tilford is with them, which is the guy that Daniel said he would quote, come to his house where he sleeps or wherever it is and cut his throat, because he talked about his son, and now he's here with his son, with the man Tilford. Pretty wild. He mentions to his son HW that he needs him. Kind of a callback to Henry or Noah, that's his real name, but the false Henry, fake brother of Daniel's, when he said he needs him and he's brought like a new life to him. Kind of a callback to that. Daniel has a strange obsession with family that may have sprung from his childhood, where he always wanted to have kids running around that mansion that he could never have. Just a note here. An interruption of sorts tears through the restaurant when Tilford and Standard Oil enter the establishment. There's like all these clattering of plates, and just like really kind of almost stops the scene. It kind of jolts you. I think they boosted the audio for this. They do a good job of that. The editor did a great job of that. Daniel looks perturbed, to say the least. And Tilford decides to approach the table and talk to them. Much better than me. I would have ignored the fuck out of him after what he said. Now, I don't know if Tilford approaches the table to break the uncomfortable ice, or if he's just there to dick swing. But he greets Daniel, and as they're shaking hands, Daniel like kind of looks over as if he's just noticed that Tilford has a hold of his hand, like he didn't realize he was even there, and he goes, "Oh yeah, what's up?" And then he looks over at HW and he kind of shouts like, "Hello," not understanding that HW is fully deaf, not partially deaf, so it doesn't matter. And Daniel says, "You don't need to shout." It was kind of rude, but it could also be said that Tilford just didn't understand, and he basically goes, "Oh," like he just nods, and then he goes, "Pleasure," and then he just goes back to his table. I mean, so I can't really tell if there's some weird like power dynamics going on, or if it's just in my head and Daniel's head, because we're watching from his perspective, right? I mean, I honestly can't say, so just leave it at that. What am I doing? Moving on. This is why this scene has so many paragraphs in my script, good lord. Then we see that even though Standard Oil came in second, their table is served before Daniel. And we see this father-son bonding is slowly replaced by Daniel's envy and kind of wrath, right? Where it actually kind of reminds me of my family. So forgive the personal anecdote here. My family struggles with social anxiety, but I don't think they deal with it in a conducive way. I'm the same way. I'm guilty of this, by the way, so just keep that in mind. I'm not calling just them out. I do the same thing. We have this social anxiety because people are watching us, and we feel sick to our stomachs. We want to throw up, and we're just shaking. So my family mostly just gets angry. They basically confront the people and get mad because it's like we're trying to get it over with, kind of, or they mock themselves to reduce their stress. Or like some people, if they entered a business like a restaurant and my family members had a bad past or something with them, they would go and confront them, not because they were like, this is the right thing to do, I need to confront this. It's because they felt so uncomfortable and terrified of the awkward tension in the air is that they'd rather just get it out of the way by being confrontational instead. I'm aware it's completely subjective, but it does kind of remind me of that with Daniel, the way that he's like mouthing fucker to himself before he decides to start being very rude and loud and kind of just obnoxious about Standard Oil, right? That is a very subjective perspective, by the way. I'm mostly just like self-inserting my own personal experiences. So he starts mocking Standard Oil. He covers his face with a napkin so HW can't read his lips. So
kind of confirmation there that HW has learned to read lips. I've heard this before. I was seeing something online actually about this, where I guess that it's not as common for a deaf person to be able to read lips as people expect, and it's actually kind of rude not to try to talk slower or communicate them in other forms if you don't know sign language, because you just assume they can read your lips even though you're talking this fast. But it seems in this that at least Daniel thinks that he can read lips. He mocks Standard Oil. He stands up and he talks about how they fucked up the deal and he made all this money and they didn't. Tilford begins to explain to his companions basically the relationship between him, Daniel, and Standard Oil, how he offered him $1 million and he was turned down flat. While Tilford is delivering this, one of his companions just goes, "Well, I'm hungry," which, so real, bro. Munchers unite. But also, it shows how little they actually give a fuck about Daniel, and he just seems like a perturbed, smaller business owner. Which, obviously, Daniel, I don't think he's going to take too kindly to that. That's just a guess, though. He gets in Tilford's face and basically says,
You look like a fool, don't you, Tilford?
to Tilford's credit, he doesn't back down. He stares right through Daniel with this look of pure, quieted fury. Daniel says, "I told you not to tell me how to raise my son," which is such a important point for Daniel. Daniel can't just be the best oil man. He can't just be the best businessman. He has to be the best father. He's better than everybody else. He doesn't need to envy you because he is better than all of you. Ego, just this crazy ego he has. Daniel has a competition in him. It runs deep as sin. Sins of the father. Oil is blood. And sin, does that mean milk is like goodness? Like the land of milk and honey? And HW's always drinking milk. So is he the good? Is he gonna be the one that goes to paradise? Oh, that was a stream of consciousness. That was some bullshit, random stuff. Just delete that from your brain. All you need to know about this altercation is Tilford is a G, Daniel's intoxicated, and HW looks very sad. There's a really great part near the end of this where the audio begins to wane down as the music charges up to rise over it, and HW is staring at the scene in silence, as if he has all these opinions and emotions swimming about the altercation but can't communicate them properly. We transition into a montage. Eli tells a man that he's going on a missionary to Taft. That's like his thing. Daniel's on a train and he makes eye contact with Eli as he's making the conversation. And when Daniel looks back, half of his face cloaked in shadow and half in light. He looks down, which is surprisingly introspective of Daniel. It seems that he's not happy with his lot in life. It seems that he's hit an impasse almost and has no idea where to go from there. But other than that, I really can't glean what his look means. It's just a very odd, emotionally soft look from our usually rage-filled, angry, charismatic businessman. We get a sweet addition of scenes where HW is learning sign language and Mary, one of the Sunday daughters, decides to learn with him to communicate with him. And they're playing and they're learning sign language, and it's kind of like this teacher role, teaching these two kids that are slowly kind of bonding. Massive Mary W as always. Yeah, then we get a massive time skip to 1927. A pastor is now marrying Mary and HW. That better not have been a fucking pun. You hear me, Paul Anderson, you son of a bitch. Better not. Anyways, they're getting married. It's very sweet. They're signing to each other the words of agreement. Commitment. God, I mean, dude, this whole movie's changed, man. I'm speaking in contracts now. It's a really beautiful scene. So how's Daniel doing? His son's getting married. He's, well, not good, if you couldn't have guessed. An opening shot of a beautiful brick house past this long drive and this groves. A house a boy from Fond du Lac may have wanted to live in once. And then we move inside. Oh, fuck, I'm nervous. Folks, we're getting to the end of this little video essay. Oh my god, I'm so nervous. Okay. Our oil man here is more of a drunk man now. Seems he's fallen completely into alcoholism, signing random checks, shooting furniture with a gun in the middle of his own hallway. Just sweaty, disgusting looking. Just awesome. No, not like good for him, sorry. But like awesome atmosphere, I guess. The moment we saw this unhinged man, sweaty, disheveled, disgusting, alcohol around him, in the middle of his hallway with a gun, shooting furniture because he has no more purpose in life, I knew we were in for the best finale this movie could have ever drummed up with the themes of the entire series of events that have transpired. I was so excited upon first watch, and I get even more excited now knowing where we're going. Not to say it's a positive ending or anything. HW begins to walk through the mansion with his old sign language teacher. I actually don't know the teacher's name, so I'm just probably going to call him teacher or translator. And they're making their way through this mansion of broken glass and destroyed walls and furniture. I love how the camera works here. It's following HW, or I guess HW is more following the camera, right? And we're watching as he's seeing everything and how disheveled the place is, how it's fallen apart. And then we get to Daniel's office, and the camera pans to this doorway, all this material wealth, right? All these objects of desire, all this greed. And at the end of it all, he's in this tiny, sad office, sweaty, disgusting, and alcohol coursing through his veins. Oh, man, it's just such a good shot choice. He looks like Scrooge, you know, when he's in his little Christmas parlor or whatever, and he's at the back doing like scrawling stuff for no reason, smoking, just not doing so hot. Daniel tells HW and his teacher to come on in. Before that, the drawing here, this is adult HW, this is Daniel. Forgive my hands, please God, don't look at them. But yeah, this is just a simple drawing. I tried to make his eyes, like his eyes all big, because I had done that with a little HW, so I thought it was a fun through line. Anyways, back to the problems at hand between this father-son dynamic. HW begins by asking if they could be alone. And just to specify, he is signing, and his translator/teacher is translating for him to Daniel by speaking. And it'll be commented on later. I'll try to say when HW signs, but I might say when HW says, because it kind of just flows in the conversation. That's how I would normally say that, so apologies for any confusion. HW first asks if they can speak in private, and Daniel says, basically looking to his butler in the corner, that man's a close associate, he hears everything, it's fine. HW again reiterates, please can we speak alone? And Daniel says, you can't speak. And this will be a through line for this entire altercation where Daniel's constantly trying to belittle HW with his deepest insecurities, not realizing that a deaf man who's lived with it for this many years has already faced so much hardship and so many jokes about a disability such as that a little fucking you can't speak comment means nothing. It's pathetic. But to be fair, I mean, Daniel is his father, so it probably does hurt coming from somebody so close. So I'll retract my statement somewhat. Daniel makes a comment that he already knows what this conversation is about. What has HW been doing, everybody? I know I'm curious. I know you're curious. Well, HW first starts by saying he wanted to state to him first that he loves his father. He loves him more than anything, and that's the truth. And he doesn't want anything to come between them. And Daniel really does look like he's considering that love, that true love, for a second. And then HW goes on to say he wants to start his own drilling business, basically, which is, he says that he misses the fresh air, he misses the open fields, and it seems that Daniel understands that chase, that ambition that's in his son, and that freedom of expression in a way. It seems HW's tired of the opulence, right? This glittering piece of shit they live in constantly, and probably always under the shadow of his father. He wants to strike out on his own, and it makes complete sense. It would make sense in any other dynamic. If Daniel wasn't an egomaniac, oil tycoon monopolizer. But, sorry, HW. Hate to break it to you, but he's all those things. HW finishes this really wonderful speech. He couldn't have said it any nicer. He just goes, it's time to make a change. And I want to show the actual sign language for that change part, because I think it's really like, I personally don't know much about sign language. I haven't learned it formally or informally, but that's a really beautiful way to convey that. I don't know what form of sign language that is, but it's a really beautiful way to convey change. I don't know. Every time I watch it, it just strikes me at like a very human chord. And I'm sure it would strike most people. Too bad for, HW that his father is Daniel Plainview. Daniel immediately opens up with, "You'll be my competitor." Crazy thing to say to your son. HW counters with, "I'd rather have a father than a business partner." So it seems that HW has grown into a position of equal influence as Daniel in the company. Which, I mean, it's impressive Daniel was willing to trust anybody that much after what happened with his brother and the problems they've had between this father and son here. But, I mean, it probably makes sense. HW's seen it since he's a kid. And having your eardrums blown out and then going back to something probably means you're passionate about it, or at least desperate enough to do it. And now he's not in a desperate position. He's got some threads. It definitely seems as though he loves it. HW loves the oil business, specifically the chase. Daniel has lost that love, but competition is still in him. Daniel immediately cuts off all of this by saying, "Say it to me yourself. Stop having your little dog yap yap woof 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 woof." So cruel and unnecessary. And so HW, one of the best characters in this entire movie, turns from the translator, looks Daniel directly in his eyes, and says, "I'm going to Mexico with my wife. I'm going away from you." Just a beautiful scene, honestly. Dude, it gives me chills every time I think about it. It's really like so full circle for HW, who was just kind of a child who idolized his father. And in this moment, he realizes that he can't save somebody that's supposed to be a role model. You can't save a role model. He realizes he put his father up on a pedestal, and his father couldn't live up to something that he never was. His father never was a good man. He could do good things, but he wasn't a good man. Yeah, breaking news. Daniel looks pretty smug here, but I think that this had a deep effect on him, the way that HW looked him in the eye. Just like Daniel's done to so many competitors, right? It's like HW is finally meeting Daniel on his competitive playing field now. It's like that change is beginning to happen. Daniel says, "You are killing my image of you as a son." We could pick that line apart all day, but I'll just simplify that idea. Daniel puts people into boxes: family, business partner, acquaintance, enemy, competition. 90% of humanity is in competition with Daniel in his mind. It's an insane way to think. It's very much, is it mercantilism? The concept that everything is so finite that we're all just trying to get a slice of the pie. It was an old merchant idea. I'll put it here probably. But just that concept that value can't be improved upon, that you can't take materials and make something way better than that, right? Or you can't build ideas that are worth more. It's just a very simplified way of slicing up the world into sections, boxes, ratios that you can more easily understand and judge under a microscope. Daniel decides to get brutally honest here, finally telling HW that he is an orphan. His teacher is hesitating, but finally tells him. HW looks like he's about to cry, but he stays as stoic and honest as possible and looks back at Daniel. He says, "You've been building up your hate for me, little by little, over all these years." Which, if you don't remember, that's a very similar callback to Daniel talking to Henry, actually, where he said that Daniel has built his hate little by little over the years for humanity. As much as Daniel will go on to say that there's none of him in HW and that he's kind of like a traitor and he's not like him at all, he's pathetic, This is almost a way of Daniel acknowledging HW is like him. HW, he's putting his orphan, or I guess I should say this, adopted, well, he's gonna be an orphan again. I don't know. He's putting his surrogate son in a projected role of hating humanity, just like Daniel. Because Daniel understands, at some introspective point, that he's also humanity, that he is a human worth hating. It's very easy to hate Daniel Plainview. And he's smart enough to know that, even with his fucking ego. He thinks everybody's worth hating. And now he understands that one of the few people he loved can hate him. And HW doesn't even hate him until, the end of this conversation, where I don't even think he hates him still. I think that he's just sad. And Daniel just can't seem to love people. He just can't do it. He's got a competition in him. And we're all racing to the finish line. Daniel then says, basically commenting on HW, saying that he's an orphan, he's a bastard from a basket, and that he has none of him in him. He says, your anger, your maliciousness, your backwards dealings with me, which, really ironic, he's saying HW again is nothing like him, but all the comments that he makes about how HW supposedly operates with him are all traits of Daniel's business practices, every one of them, and just how he is. This really feels like a secret self-hate fuck or something. It's so odd. But it's true, HW is nothing like Daniel. HW is a good man. Yeah, it was never going to work for them, And HW should be thankful he doesn't have Daniel in him. HW looks Daniel in the eyes and signs, thank God I have none of you in me. And then he stands up and he walks away with his translator. Daniel screaming, bastard from a basket. Bastard from a basket. And HW's walk is cold as fuck here. I'm not gonna lie. Just iced. Iced out, bro, in his threads. The look on the translator's face as Daniel was screaming this, because the translator can hear it, and he's like, oh my God, this guy's going crazy. Something about it is just so powerful. I know I mentioned it earlier, but the fact that HW takes away his father's greatest strength through his disability is like it's very empowering in an odd way that I hadn't considered until I'd written the script. But yeah, he doesn't even hear this bullshit from Daniel as he's screaming it, and Daniel's just speaking into the void, basically. And we get a very sad scene where Daniel's drinking some more alcohol, and as he is, it cuts to him playing with his son, and they're having a good time out by a campfire, back when they were still running the fields. Very sad, dude. So sad. But Daniel's done this. He's done this. HW didn't kill the image of his son. Daniel killed the image of a father, Daniel then scoots down into the bowling alley. And now it's time, ladies and gentlemen, to get to the finale. So, ladies and gentlemen, people of all backgrounds and pronouns, I think it's time for us to call this little video essay a close with the finale of There Will Be Blood. Down in this bowling alley, we have the last scene of the movie. As you can see, I tried to make a little set here. Let me know what you guys think. But I was really proud of that top one. I think that was a fun perspective from the movie, so pretty happy with that drawing. I'm not so happy with the Muppet, but whatever. Daniel is passed out on the floor of his bowling alley down in the basement. His butler is attempting to wake him up with plates of food and by shaking him subtly. A figure in a dark suit with a silver cross suddenly appears. telling the butler it'll be fine and to leave them. Eli, our old priest friend, has returned. He attempts to wake Daniel, and realizing Daniel is so drunkenly passed out and Eli feels like he's in a position of power, screams that there's a fire, you need to get out, and Daniel does not wake. Then the priest says, "It's Brother Eli," and Daniel's rhythmic breathing suddenly stops, as though even his unconscious hatred is palpable. He awakes, and slowly Eli begins to butter him up, saying, "Oh, your home is beautiful. God bless it." Which there's no faster way to anger Daniel than to mention religion in your first conversation together. Eli talks about how since he's left Little Boston, he's been working with radio, spreading the good word, making some money. And while it's happening, though, I can't take it very seriously because Daniel's doing this little skedaddle. I don't know about the rest of you, but I can't keep a straight face when there's Icelandic folk dancing going on in the background of somebody's trying to be serious. Eli is mentioning that Daniel and him are basically brothers through marriage, talking about HW and his younger sister being together. And then says a little Christianism, quote, "Things go up, things go down, but at least the Lord is always round." And Daniel gives maybe his most murderous look towards Eli at this comment, which is no small feat considering all the murderous looks Mr. Lewis portrays in this movie. Daniel asks if Eli is down right now, which is very pointed of you, Daniel, to notice his awkwardness. Eli ignores it smartly, not getting to the point, instead moving on to business, saying that William Bandy has recently died and his son has inherited the Bandy tract. Even though Eli says it's too bad, he's smirking. It sounds like it's wonderful news or something. And Eli begins to say that he could talk to William Bandy's son and have Daniel drill there. Great deal, right? And Daniel says, very uncharacteristically, making a deal with Eli, goes, "Oh, that sounds great. You just have to do one thing for me." And Eli's like, "What?" And he's like, "I need you to stand up and say you are a false prophet and God is a superstition." Oh, man, this scene just builds, dude. Eli says something here that strikes me as so odd. He goes, "But it's a lie. And I cannot say a lie." Which is so funny. Eli is one of the biggest deceiver, lying pieces of shit in the entire movie. I mean, his name is literally an anagram for lie. The fallen angel archetype comes to mind. The way that Eli stands up, he's got all this slick back hair, silver cross, standing tall, drinking alcohol he was so opposed to only a few years ago. And Daniel turns like a devil, this like wide smile on his face, tired of all the bullshit in between, just wanting that thing, which is for Eli to literally renounce God. Fallen archetype. I think it's pretty accurate, pretty apt. Eli makes sure to boost his deal with Daniel, so if he gets him the Bandy track, that it's going to get way better. If I say this fucked up shit, you better give me a good deal. And Dan's like, "Yep," no second thought. He just says, "Yep, you just got to do the thing." And Eli downs his drink. Eli stands up and he goes, "I am a false prophet. God is a superstition." And Daniel basically goes, louder, Eli, again. "I am a false prophet. God is a superstition." And Daniel's there the entire time just eating steak like this. Like, just imagine. It's a full room, Eli, congregation, so people in the back, you need to speak up. So he gets Eli to the point where he's screaming it out to an open room, arms wide, as though he's delivering a sermon. And Eli seems like he's just accepted it, kind of how Daniel accepted it in their church meeting, right? Like, okay, I guess I gotta do this fuck shit so I can get this awesome deal and get all these money and value. Until Eli's dreams for money are dashed into the fire by, "Those areas have been drilled." What a matter-of-fact, straightforward line, no room for negotiation. Those areas have been drilled. Your blasphemy has earned you nothing. You're not getting shit, and I just gotta see you embarrass yourself in this private domicile of mine. He holds all the cards. Paul Dana's little silent head shake going, no, they haven't. Or I guess, how do I do Paul Dano's voice? How do I do this? No, they haven't. Something like that. No, they haven't. I don't know. Sorry, I'm getting obsessed with the the impression. Our protagonist will go on to explain drainage. So I'm just going to do it right here, right now. So Daniel does not own the bandy tract. So Eli's point is, oh, you don't own this piece of property. We know there's oil there, which means I'm going to sell it to you as a third party. Basically, he's the one in between guy, and he thinks that's how he's going to make his money. Daniel makes it clear that all the oil there has been drilled. What Eli doesn't understand is drainage. So drainage basically means if you buy property all around a plot of land. So say you got the bandy tract in the middle, and then you bought a circle of territory all around the bandy tract, like right on the border, right? All the oil is sitting in like a giant pool underground, kind of. It's not really how it is, but just imagine it, right? So when he's drilling that circle all around the bandy tract, it's sucking water from that massive pool until there's nothing underneath that center piece of land, along with all those border pieces, right? He took from the pool. If you go and stab at the middle of the pool, it doesn't matter. It's still empty. Eli asks if he understands what he's telling him. This is the bandy tract, Daniel. And Daniel says, do you understand? Do you understand what I'm telling you? That's the question, Eli. And then he says one of the greatest lines in the entire movie. I drink your water. I drink it up every day. I drink the blood of lamb from Bandy's tract. Fascinating turn of phrase. Water biblically means purity, purifying, but drinking somebody's water could be seen as greed. So you could say that, and also it's involved with baptism. So you could say Daniel drank the water that could have baptized Eli, purified him of his sins. But that's not true, because if the deal would have been made, then it would have just spurned on sin. So that water theory doesn't hold much water. Anyways, secondly, I like the idea more that it's the blood of the lamb. I think what Daniel's saying here is that he drank Eli's water as in something that could have fulfilled his thirst, his want for more, right? But the blood of the lamb is literally the sacrificial lamb that could have saved Eli from his current circumstance. So you'll go to find he's not in a very good position and he really needed this sale. Daniel drank the blood of the sacrificial territory, Bandy's tract, by taking all the territory around it, which means there's nothing left to get rid of, to sacrifice in order for Eli to gain, is how I see it. Eli says, I'm in desperate times. Daniel says, I know. Which makes it clear that Daniel knew that Eli wanted something, which should be obvious in hindsight. Eli says, I need a friend. And Daniel says, yes, of course you do. Again, reaching his hand out, the devil, the angel. Not to say Eli's a good person, but you get the metaphor. So many biblical metaphors. Eli says, I've sinned. I need help. I'm a sinner. Which, great callback again to the church scene, where he forced Daniel to admit he was a sinner, and now Eli's admitting he's a sinner. Daniel subtly mocks him by saying, the Lord sometimes challenges us, doesn't he, Eli? And I like his positioning, his pose here. He's like a mischievous forest gremlin. Really sells me on the machinations of his evil little plans here. They both start saying, yes, he does, in answer to Daniel's question. Yes, he does. So just like disturbing and scary, honestly. The horror movie vibes are back. Now Eli speaks something that is so hilarious. He goes, he, being God, completely failed to alert me to the recent panic in our economy. God failed to alert Eli to America's economic problems in 1900s America. Oh my God, it's just so funny. It's so funny and pathetic. It's like the way it's delivered, everything. Paul Dano, you monster. You're a monster of acting. So good, dude. I fucking... Eli begins to snivel and get pathetic and cry, saying how God gives them mysteries that they must just wait hand and foot for him, hoping that he answers them. Daniel makes it clear. He goes, "Because you're not the chosen brother, Eli." You can kind of see it here. I kind of tried to draw it on the board, but basically, Daniel gets up and starts telling him how he is not the chosen brother, how he's pathetic and doesn't deserve any help from God. We quite literally see the state of opposing ideals right now. Funny, I kind of put it on opposite sides, but I like that. It's like an odd symmetry. Daniel calling Paul the true prophet is pretty interesting here because there was actually a figure called St. Paul who spread the teachings of Jesus. So just kind of another smart parallel. And it does really seem like Paul was the better brother in a lot of ways. He faced off with Daniel in his own domicile, got the better of him with information, stared through Daniel as they made a deal, got the money he wanted, gave Daniel what he wanted. He didn't cheat him out of anything, and he went to do whatever he did. Daniel tells Eli that he gave Paul $10,000 in cash right there, and he has a profitable little oil business. Now, this is a lie. And let me read to you me figuring out where he got this number 10,000 from. Holy fuck, the lie is his pitch from the speech at the beginning. He says he had to see about his new well at Coyote Hills, that he has 2 others producing, each of the 3 producing at $5,000 a week. So this is definitely a lie. Goddamn, that's crazy. I never knew that shit. I watched this movie like 15 times. So good. The writing. Wow. What a fucking snake oil salesman. So great. All right, continue. The gist is we don't know where Paul is or how he's doing. He's probably doing well, but Daniel is using this lie to damage Eli as much as fucking possible. Eli starts sobbing, and we get the most Chad insult of 1920s America I can imagine. Daniel says, "Stop crying, you sniveling ass. Stop your nonsense. You're just the afterbirth, Eli, that slithered out on your mother's filth. They should have put you in a glass jar on the mantelpiece." I'm using that one from now on, dude. I'm using that on my friends. "They should have put you in a glass jar. Where were you when Paul was suckling at his mother's teat? Where were you?" Daniel tries to get real with Eli and says that the land is had. It's done. Basically trying to convey to Eli, dude, it's done. Like, if you need to give up on this, I gotta embarrass you, get fucked, and you can go ahead and leave, you know? And I think that this is kind of the point of no return, because if Eli continues what she does, that's a wrap. And so he continues to try to angle for something, and Daniel goes, "Drainage, Eli, you boy." And saliva's just falling from his mouth. It's so disgusting and fucking great. Then we get the iconic milkshake metaphor. That shirt that I was wearing last time, this is the reference to it. I drink your milkshake. So Daniel begins to go on a rant explaining drainage, how I kind of explained it earlier, a little different. This is apparently a reference to an oil man who had to explain to Congress how drainage worked a long time ago, which is pretty crazy. That's kind of a cool little thing. But he used a milkshake metaphor, kind of similar to this. Daniel takes on a teacher role, and I love Eli's expression because it's the exact expression you'll have upon first watch where you're like, well, because Daniel goes, "Wait, here, this is how it works." Like, he acts like he's lecturing him, which he is. And he basically says that if I have a straw in my milkshake and I reach all the way across the room, in your milkshake, I drink your milkshake. I drink it up. Eli says, "Don't bully me, Daniel." He's like, sounds like sniveling brat begging for their girlfriend not to leave. Eli standing up for himself here doesn't go so well. Daniel grabs him and chucks him onto the floor, mocking him, saying, "Did you think your little song and dance would save you?" And Daniel continues, "I am the third revelation." First, I thought this was mockery upon all my rewatches, right? But as I've written this, I think this comes back to Daniel's competition, this line. I am the third revelation. He's telling Eli that in his own way, he's beating him. He's delivering a sermon right now to Eli, and he's been dominating the conversation. Right now, he's dominating everything. Saying he is the third revelation is almost... It's like he's saying, if there was a third revelation in this room, it would be me, not your sniveling, sweaty ass right now crawling on the floor. He's the better prophet, even though he hates religion. He's the better prophet. Look, I just delivered a way better speech than you. I'm the third revelation. He can't help it. He needs to beat everyone. Eli needs to lose to him in every way possible, and he has just now. Iconic shot of Daniel kind of walking towards Eli, pointing at himself, saying he's the third revelation, just lording over the space. He's gone completely mad. He's off the deep end. Daniel chases after Eli, chucking bowling balls, rushing after him until Eli's hiding behind the little alleyway block. He's rushing. Eli's screaming, "We're brothers, Daniel, we're brothers," which is not going to help. Daniel fucking hates you. Eli is pleading with him. "You can't do this, Daniel. You can't." Eli's running on all fours until Daniel comes up, bashes him in the back of the skull with a bowling pin. The unhinged, horrifying, ape-like look on Daniel's face. We already know what's going to happen, but just the expression of a hunter, like you've found this kill you've been just primally hoping to get for so long, right in front of him. And Daniel raises up the bowling pin and bashes his head in. He does it again, killing Eli. He falls back, his boot scuffing into the blood. And he lays on a heap, a drunken heap, on the floor until his butler slowly descends the staircase and asks, "Mr. Daniel?" And Daniel calls in a kind of sing-songy way. And that's the end of the movie. We follow Daniel as a silver miner, a low-tier oil man, a businessman, a pipeline that runs to the ocean, to one of the richest oil tycoons we've ever seen. Daniel was always obsessed with the chase. He was never a good guy, but I think at the very beginning, he still had connections to others, right? Fletcher, his son, Henry, and I think him killing Eli was his last connection. Hate is even a connection. Eli is like a dark mirror that shows some of Daniel's worst traits and his most hated things and ideals. Religion, hypocrisy, a goody two-shoes who hides his true intentions, even though at times Daniel did the exact same thing. Daniel kills his final connection. He kills Eli, because hate is still a relationship. And that last line, "I'm finished." He truly is done. Once you have everything, all you can hope to do is wipe it all clean again. I have no doubts that after the events of the movie, Daniel goes on to whore and drink himself to death, probably through liver failure. And HW is the only one to attend his funeral because HW is too good for this world. This movie does a great job of building connections between capitalism and religion. Daniel drills and earns community approval by getting in good with the church and basically building it for them. So the church was paved with bad intentions. And the church benefits Eli specifically by getting money and growing past it. I love this movie. All right, some quick appreciations here. Obviously, Paul Anderson, holy shit. This was a really well-directed movie. Daniel Day-Lewis, obviously, he helped make this character. I don't think anybody else could have been Daniel Plainview the way that Daniel Day-Lewis was. Paul Dano, probably the best supporting actor I've ever seen in my life, and at times he just completely stole the show. Like, how do you even do that when you're on screen with such a titan like Mr. Lewis? I don't know, but he somehow accomplished it. Just completely impressive, just blows you away. Dylan Titchener, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. The editing for this movie is really great. The pacing, the prelapse, the overlays, it's all subtle enough but smooth enough and only jarring when it needs to be. The music placements, it all suits the themes and atmosphere. Jonny Greenwood, I didn't know he's part of this band, that's crazy, but all the music for this was fundamental to the construction and the kind of feeling you get from it. All very horror movie, classical, sets you in the right time, antiquity, and keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. The tension, it's great. Sorry if I mispronounced the second one here. Matthew Wood and sound designer Chris Scarabosio. The sound design in this movie keeps you immersed. Past a lot of movies and films I've had the pleasure of enjoying. The sound of the pick hitting the wall in the intro, the oil flood happening in the middle of the climax, even the sound of the bowling pin hitting Eli's head. It all just feels so real and perfectly timed, and I appreciate that. But at the risk of repeating all the credits right now, I'm gonna say, please watch the credits. Please give your flowers to whoever you think did very well. I think everybody did great in this movie. Fantastic work. I love this movie. It is in my top 2 favorite movies of all time, constantly switching with Whiplash. The shot composition, the setting, the sound design, the music, the actors, the direction, the actual dialogue. It's natural, but also feels like it's from a different time. It's immersive, but theatrical. All in all, this movie captivates me like no other, and that's why I had to talk about it. I had to talk about this movie, or else it just sticks in my brain forever. A good movie makes you feel immersed, in my opinion. A good movie makes you feel like you're there, you're with the characters, you're experiencing the world just like all of them, and you're afraid what's going to happen, and you're afraid of what direction they're going. Daniel is a terrifying character, a terrifying protagonist. There will always be men like Daniel, reaching from a bloody past for a bloody future. Whether it's oil or pharmaceuticals, there will be men like him. There will be blood. Thank you for watching.